Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode... What is the episode number? Tettles, what's the episode number?
39.
39? 39 of the Titanforge podcast. My name is Dratnos, joined by my numbers expert, Tettles.
I'm the expert of the numbers, but lowest on the damage meter.
I was about to say.
Bad, man. Sometimes it's like that, man. I don't know what to
say. And this week, our special guest is AutomaticJak. Welcome to our show once again.
Thank you for having me on again.
So this week we are going to talk about healer playstyles. That's our main topic. So we brought a healing expert here because none of the three of us really play healer all that much. You know, you'd be forgiven if you'd seen some recent damage meter tweets for thinking that Tettles played a healer. But in fact, he's a DPS player.
I healed MDI once.
That's true.
Fair enough.
I did ask Tettles to sub in for Fu to heal my MDI team last week, so you got to give him a little bit.
Speaking of MDI, we've actually got a kind of MDI style tournament that all of us are involved in coming up next weekend. So that's the Keystone Masters tournament. We'll talk a little bit more about that kind of as part of the show, but one thing that's going to do is affect our schedule because next week we are going to be busy doing that at this time. So we are going to do a pre-recording thing of some kind. We're not entirely sure what the day or time is going to be on that, but we'll either record early and stream it, or we'll just record early and release it straight to iTunes and YouTube and everything. So stay tuned for our Twitter. We'll make more announcements on what exactly we're going to do about that. We are going to have a show of some kind, though, coming out next week. It just, is not going to be live at this time because you should tune into twitch.tv/Keystone Masters at that time, where you'll be able to see myself and Trell gaming and Tettles and Jack casting.
Yeah.
It's
Hell yeah.
It's gonna be really exciting. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, very soon actually. But first, we've got some powerful patrons to thank over at patreon.com/Titanforge, making the show possible. They are Ahar of US Proudmore, Paul of US Proudmore, King of Skills, VTech XD, Zuko, Ja, Uncle Please Invite, Khalifa D Pog, Drunk Swede from Legion of Lemmings, Argent Dawn EU, Shirtless Tettles, Actually Tootsie, Heltari, Ishiyu, and Tettles, I understand we have a special shout out here.
Yeah, shout out to Schnooty.
Big shout out to
Schnooty.
Happy birthday. Sorry that.
Happy birthday, Schnooty.
Sorry, it was a week late or whatever.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Blue of Emerald Dream, Chromed, Seraphicus, Trekkie, the Marsh Hare, Regulus, Never Nude, Grizzjam, Chewy, and Always Trell Prepared. So that's I guess always well prepared is what
some kind of name.
Yeah.
You can always be prepared, but are you always Trell prepared?
These are the mysteries. All right, let's move on then to our show. So we're going to talk first about just MDI and Keystone Masters in general. As you may remember, we already talked a little bit about MDI announcement, but there is the official announcement of all that out. Signups are now active is kind of a big thing to note. Trell, are you planning to game in this MDI?
Yeah, my team that's doing Keystone Masters next weekend is going early to prepare for MDI by doing this tournament. So we're excited to build more strength as a team and synergy and get in there.
All right, so yeah, there's a Battlefy link. If you guys are interested in getting on Tournament Realm, playing in the MDI, you can even sign up as a free agent for this thing. So I'll put it in chat. We'll put it in the show notes or as well. So if you're listening to this or watching it later, that you can sign up for this tournament. One cool thing this time around as well is that we've got EU and NA on different regions, right? Not going to play directly against each other until the finals, until the end of the season.
Yeah.
How do you feel about? Okay, so it's NA and OCE, and then EU, Korea, China, and Taiwan, I believe is the distinction. How do you guys feel about that? I feel like the Chinese and Taiwanese region is going to be really competitive with some of the European teams. And then it looked like Ethical had a decent MDI team with Arrow. It was basically like there was a couple of free Marcy guys in there, and they were putting up some okay times for Keystone Masters, but they just didn't post all three. So maybe OC has some good stuff too.
I was surprised they didn't fill out all three. I was looking for that team.
I talked to Arrow a bit, and he was just like, we're lazy. We just don't want to do all three, but we were just getting a little bit of practice.
Gotcha.
Dude, they put up an 11-minute time in Natal, and I was like, ooh, that's kind of hot.
Jack, what do you think about this region split this way?
I think the region split's great. I mean, we'd seen like the highs of like China was like really good, but then they had also like the lowest of lows. So being able to, you know, get the cream of the crop really, and then also kind of spreading out NA a lot as well. Because I'm sure that a lot of teams on NA were just kind of turned off when NA and EU were like merged together, and they were like, "Well, we're not going to have a chance, or we don't want to start from like 6th, 7th, or 8th seed, go immediately into facing up against Method EU, and then get knocked out."
Yeah, I think for some reason I think this may be more of an NA perspective. Jack, do you see this a lot on EU where teams are just like, and players are just not wanting to try because they are not going to be on a team that is quote competitive? Because I see that a lot from NA players, but I don't know if that happens a lot from European players.
I think partially, yeah. Like the other thing is you also look at like teams of really good, really competitive players, and then they get a bad seed or they get a bad time trial with one of their like 5 tries, and then they just kind of give up and disband entirely. You know, it's like having the dedication to it, but also kind of having like the steel to maybe do really poorly in like 1 week and then kind of bounce back from it. Like, because we saw even with Shella and Fem, for example, when they had their teams together, I believe they had separate teams or their team just straight fell apart. And then they reformed, made a new team for weeks 2 and 3, and then almost made it to LAN as a result, right?
Yeah, that was pretty good.
It really is much more about like having a dedicated team than anything else.
Yeah, like there's definitely a skill requirement. You know, if you want to beat Method EU or Method NA eventually, that you need to be good, but you can't be scared of like having some embarrassing times, or like, especially if you're a new team, right? You've got to you've got to just practice and keep going at it, I think. So there's definitely some space in North America now for some teams to do that didn't exist before. Like the space to make it to cups, if you are, it like has opened widely if you're a North American team compared to last MDI.
It also just gives room for people to gain experience, to be able to push forward and to become more dedicated. I think part of the problem is that the groups are spread so thin because like East region was a bit of a meme and West region was incredibly competitive, to the point where it was like a lot of Western region teams could benefit from the experience of just doing this LAN, or not doing the LAN, but like doing some of the live cups, but they just ended up not having the opportunity because they were the 12th best team or something.
Yeah, that happened to my team. We were like 12th or 19th, then 12th, then 10th for the 3 MDI time trials, and it's like, you know, our keys were all in time; they were completed, so they were better than the 8th seed for East region. But
you gotta slide that in there.
Thank you, Fatness.
I think because of that, like the separation of the divisions is going to be good. Like they should be a little bit closer in skill level, although I think West will still be less competitive than, or it'll be flip-flop. West will now be less competitive than East because of EU being on East, but it shouldn't be quite as big of a disparity.
How likely is it that NA/OCE region will be a meme now? Is a question that we just got in chat.
I mean,
I think
I think like whenever they show up,
good teams.
Yeah, wherever they show up, they're excellent, top tier, and everything, right? It's just whether or not they choose to play, you know.
And it's like that ethical team with Arrow and stuff. It's like if they try, they can like put up some really good times, and they can be good. It's like Free Marcy and Gulch and Free Pumps were also all really good in the second MDI. It's whether or not they're trying, which is it's going to be rough because of the time zones that I think the broadcast is going to be in too, especially when they have to wake up, right?
Yeah, Oceanic times it's like 6 a.m. or something, I think, for them. So that's
it is a global tournament. I think someone has to get screwed by time zones.
Oh,
no matter
of
what,
course.
Right? And this time it's not the casters.
Oh, hot dog.
All right.
Oh, man.
So, speaking of MDI tournaments, we have just finished the time trial period for Keystone Masters. So, those of you, again, who don't know about Keystone Masters, this is a community-run MDI-style tournament. One thing that is unique about it is that it's run at Keystone level 16, which is lower than the previous MDIs have been, and probably lower, we think, than this MDI will be. I don't think anybody knows for sure what level this MDI is going to be yet, but this one was 16, so really big pulls were a feature of this tournament. And the time trials have just concluded an hour ago. And here is the standing. So top 8 teams have made it to the competition, which is next weekend. We've got Method EU, Method NA in first and second seed. Gromnak Waiting Room here, that's Abracadabra, has got that name, in third.
Well, it's Abracadabra, except it's no longer Dr. J, so...
Right. For the 5
Abra
players.
was
Then where's the magic?
Yeah, exactly. Abra was a Dr. J meme, but I don't know. Is he playing? I don't know what he's up.
I don't think he's in
Did
this.
Dr. J leave Abracadabra, or did 4 other players leave Dr. J and Abracadabra? I think the 4 left.
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
I have no idea. There's also a possibility with this tournament that people are on different teams than they will be for MDI too. Because, it's...
Possibly.
Like, this is a tournament...
It's weird, though, because this is, like, supposed to set the stage, right, for the rest of the MDI. Like, everybody was going into this to say, like, all right, how can we perfect what we're planning to do,
I mean, that team is incredibly good, even if Jay's
certainly. I mean, Wolf Disco's been around for MDI for...
Yeah, Wolf Disco
2
was
years.
at LAN.
Yeah, he's been at LAN, and he's been playing at high-level keys and high-level M+ for ages, so...
That team's good.
Then we got the boys, who's Rads' team, coming in
The
fourth
boys?
there. Yeah, there's a pretty big gap here between the top 3 are all within about a minute of each other on the total time in the time trials here, and then the gap kind of opens up for fourth. Fifth is Inertia, that's Trell's team. Congrats, Trell.
Hey!
Then we got Paint for Fem
That's
in
us.
6th, 11 seconds behind Trell's team. They are, of course, Fem's team. Account-wide Essences in 7th, that's me. That's my team.
Good, thank you, Travis. I'm glad that
That's
you
me.
Yeah, that's me.
I did this smile.
Smiley face.
Smiley
And then
face.
Depleto Gang, rounding out the top 8. Yeah.
Toledo gang. Who is that team again?
Let's take a look. Open it up. It's El Broiblo's team. So this is the Enhancement Shaman team.
Oh, the
Yeah.
Shaman.
Ooh.
Let's
Yeah.
go.
We're gonna see some Shaman this next week.
Right, and actually, okay, so the comps for these runs have looked not very MDI compared to previous MDI. So let's look at some of these time trials. So okay, Ataldazar, this looks a little bit familiar, right? Like the same tank in every group, the same healer in every group, the same DPS in every group. Where it's
I find it interesting that people are running Havoc Demon Hunter.
Well, okay, so one thing about this tournament is you can't play 2 of the same spec. I feel fairly confident that Havoc Demon Hunter would be an
Right.
Unholy Death Knight if it were
It
allowed.
would be
Yeah.
for sure.
But you can only play 1 Unholy Death Knight. So yeah, top 7 runs in Natal are all the exact same comp. But that's a bit of an anomaly, actually. The other 2 dungeons, there's a lot more diversity. So King's Rest, for instance, we've got 3 different healers in the top 8, 2 different tanks in the top 8, and there's Beastmaster Hunters, Outlaw Rogues, Havoc Demon Hunters, Unholy Death Knights, Windwalkers, Enhancement Shaman, all in the top 8 there in the DPS role.
So what's the point of the Beastmaster Hunter in the King's Rest?
They just do a shitload of damage. Like they don't have any kind of cooldowns. I don't know, man.
It's like
Okay, I'll take
Windwalker
that.
Monk back in Legion. It was like they just do a lot of damage.
Okay,
Yeah,
never mind.
hunters
I
are busted right now.
thought maybe
Yeah.
it's due to baiting the bleeds or something like that, but you have the Holy Pally, so you don't need the hunter. And I'm
yeah,
like,
you have dwarves as well in there, so
Yeah,
you can
like-
stoneform it. And it's a 16. The bleeds aren't too bad.
After playing it through a bunch of times, Hunter brings a lot of cool stuff. Like you have to binding shot the minions as well because you don't have Blood Elf Racial as Alliance. That helps. You can purge the minions as well with your pet. You have a better lust for the group. You can hang out at range whenever you want and just blast instead of having to be in the crap show that's melee in every MDI queue where 5 players in melee just getting owned. And on the last boss, they can use their pet to take the first Spirit Breaker hit on the tank, and the pet doesn't even die if they have a defensive going, and they can do full damage while doing that. So it's really, really strong.
Ironbark the Pet.
Yeah.
Yeah, because one thing we haven't talked about before was that most teams are doing 4 obelisks with boss and King's Rest.
Yeah, to be honest, it sounds daunting, but that is by far the easiest one of Waycrest, King's Rush, and Atal with doing all 4 pillars of the last boss. Atal and Waycrest are a lot harder.
Yeah, we ended up doing 3 in Atal and 2 in Wakerest and 4 in King's Rest, and 4 in King's Rest was probably easier than 3 in Wakerest would have been.
Yeah, I think so.
Part of it's that it's fortified. The fortified affix is active in King's Rest in the time trials here, and also no other affixes that really affect the last boss. There's no necrotic or anything. Whereas in Waycrest, it's tyrannical necrotic, so it's a lot scarier to do too many obelisks at the end. So yeah, speaking of Waycrest, we also have quite a bit of diversity here. Mistweaver and Holy Paladin. I guess just J.B was the only Mistweaver really in the top 8, but still a little bit of diversity there. And then we've got Rep Pallies showing up. Both Method NA and Account-Wide Essences played Rep Pallies in this dungeon.
So why'd you bring Rep Pally?
Well, Bop is really strong.
Allowed the Mistweaver.
Yeah, it allowed their Mistweaver. It let them have their Bop on a different role. For us, it was a second Bop, and we just weren't convinced that Rogue did anything.
Gotcha.
So the problem with Rogue has been that just the damage is really, really low compared to where it used to be.
Did they change Drestagath trinket with Blade Flurry?
Yes, they nerfed it mid time trial actually. So some of the early times that were put up were using rogues with Drestagath trinket, and that used to Blade Flurry, so it used to do about 4 times as much damage as it does now. And then they nerfed it. So it's
we had a KR split after the first boss at like 240. And then we couldn't ever get that split again because suddenly they hotfixed the trinket. We were so
yeah. I still played that trinket in KR because I didn't realize they hotfixed it. So I'm just there with like a 0 damage trinket. It was not good.
Love that.
Yeah.
Yoink, my damage now.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh, look at that priest in 14th place. I love it.
Yeah, we got there's Disc Priest, and there was a Resto Shaman time as well. I think it's been pushed off the top 20, but yeah, gamers are gaming with all kinds of stuff. We got Guardian Druids, Blood Death Knights, Boomkins. We got Brewmaster Monk, Balanced Druid. Yeah, all kinds of cool stuff happening.
Balanced Druid is not it. That is not it.
Yeah,
hey, there's trees for necrotic though.
That's true, actually. There's a feral druid.
You need an army of trees. Is the Moonkin the tank? Like,
there's actually a feral druid high up as well here on the Waycrest rankings.
See, there you go.
Yeah, very cool. So all in all, you know, there's a lot of different specs that we're seeing in the bottom. It's kind of normal to see below the top 8 to see some of the weirder specs, but even in the top 8, there's quite a bit of diversity for this tournament. And I kind of expect that to continue a little bit going into the MDI.
Really?
I'm not too sure.
Yeah.
Because I feel like with how this tournament helps everybody kind of figure out the meta, it kind of reminds me of like where MDI was last year, with how first week or two had some variety. And then once people started figuring out, oh, you go double Unholy Decay for this dungeon or that dungeon, for the freeholds, for the underrots, for whatever. Oh, we bring in Mistweaver Monk with Way of the Crane. Like, I feel like Keystone Masters will have some variety, especially near like the bottom, 5, 6, 7, 8. But it's going to then turn into everybody seeing that meta and then adopting it and then consolidating for MDI.
I think the no duplicate like spec thing, I didn't even know about that until you told me. I think that the new no duplicate spec thing is part of the reason that we're seeing more diversity than we would otherwise see, because double unholy is by far the best comp.
It would be for a tall, but like people aren't even playing the first unholy in King's Rest, most of them, or many of them.
Okay, well, it's not great in King's Rest.
And I guess in Waycrest everybody's doing it.
In Waycrest, you would absolutely play double unholy. Yeah,
that's true.
Like, it would actually make the necrotic pulls so much easier.
Yeah,
everything would get blasted, just absolutely blown up.
That's interesting. Do you guys think that the no duplicate spec rule is like good on overall then?
I actually like it because I always have more utility in the group. I mean, it's a kiss and a curse because some things are harder because mobs live longer without double unholy decay, but it's also fun to have 3 AoE stuns in the group, for example, with Mistweaver, Havoc, DH, and whereas season 2 of BFA, it was like triple rogue, and you just looked at the utility list and it was like, oh my god, there's literally nothing for AoE stuns except
you had to like single target assign everything, right? Of like knowing who's stunning what, know who's shutting down what for every single pull.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think for me, it just kind of depends on what you're looking for. Are you looking for the best runs, or are you looking for something that's more representative of like a live run?
I think that like adding a little bit more diversity, like I think it's actually really good for optics if they're like if you see how there's like the the Rep Pally teams and the Havoc DH teams, like if that all turned into just double unholy outlaw teams, I think that would look a lot less good. I think that would be a lot less interesting to watch. Like I think even just like that kind of small difference goes a long way. So I'm kind of a fan of this rule.
For optics, I would agree. But again, it depends on like what you're valuing. If you value like the fastest run by the best comp, then
well, I think that you want to make sure that the runs are smooth. Like I think one of the problems with a lot of the proposed restrictions, like if you can ban specs in the middle of an MDI match, is that then the runs get all chaotic, right? Like they get a lot less good.
Yeah, because you don't practice for that.
Right.
Yeah.
But this is like a good middle ground where the runs are still practiced, they're still smooth, like the comps are still prepared by the teams. But teams, have legitimately come up with, different, like Method NA and Method E, or 2 specs different in Waycrest. And also in King's Rush, they're just 1 spec different, but still, that's a lot more than previous MDIs we've seen.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm pretty happy to see like a lot more Holy Pallies played as well. I was thinking initially that it was going to be like, well, Paladins can't be Night Elves, so not bringing those, right? I'm hoping that kind of continues if we go into MDI, because honestly, it's like, especially when we're talking about like, let's have something that's kind of representative of live servers. Seeing a team of 5 Night Elves or 4 Night Elves or something like that, and then the non-Night Elf is a rogue already. It's just really silly to watch. It's very annoying to watch.
Well, I mean,
it not only restricts class compositions, but it's like nobody can go home with their buddies and like, let's try that route out. Let's try these things out,
Yeah. Now here's where we meld. Like, wait a second.
Yeah.
I don't have that button.
Even with like corruption now, I feel like you have a lot of opportunities to like, as an example, if it's 16 keys, right? Like, oh, we could actually melt this pack because we have those kind of corruptions or something similar to it, right?
Yeah.
Would it be better if they were all Horde?
I think it'd be better if they banned Night Elves and then let everybody sort it out after that.
Fair.
It would be more realistic for sure.
One problem with that would have been that it would have been a pretty serious rogue buff back in like before rogue was nerfed, but now I actually don't think it's that bad to take away Night Elf anymore. I guess it would probably guarantee a rogue in every group, and it would probably help hunters too.
You're trying to say that the rogue is not already guaranteed, man? Have you seen Tricks of the Trade?
I mean, it's not. Sure. There are a lot of top 8 runs here don't have any rogues in them. I guess 2 top 8 runs don't have any rogues in them of these, and they are 7th and 8th in a dungeon. But still, that's ridiculous compared to before.
Travis, I feel like your metrics here are very skewed.
Before there were 2 or 3 rogues per run, right? And now there's 0 or 1. That's a big difference, right?
Sure. It's moving in that direction, but I like how Jason and Chat pointed it out, where variety is important for like the viewer experience, and while it's worked really well for like League with bans, I think there has to be a different. Like I think that it's too much chaos, as we've mentioned previously, if that happens for MDI, but there should still be more. Yeah, there should be other things to be improving the viewer experience, especially as MDI is moving on to YouTube as well. So being able to not only push viewers who usually only watch something on Twitch, but making sure that they move to YouTube and will tune in, I think is also pretty important. So it's kind of like how they strategize tailoring a better viewer experience, not only for how the games are played, but also how like players are promoted, to make sure they're like, oh, I really want to tune in to watch Trell, to watch Method EU, Method NA, whoever it is, right?
Yeah, I the more that you guys talk about it, the more I think I'm starting to convert to the one spec per group. I don't know. Maybe it is a little bit better, especially for optics, for viewership too, because it's hard to relate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and double unholy would push out single unholy comps. There's so much more diversity between them than double unholy comps. Like almost all the like flex spots would just be a second copy of another good spec in many of these groups. So yeah, I'm actually a fan of this rule. I think that MDI rules are already out and don't include it, so I think it might be too late to have that show up in there, but maybe in future seasons, especially if they end up seeing a lot of double unholy this time and not liking it.
I don't think it's ever too late.
Do they? Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think they've even released the key level for MDI, if I'm not mistaken.
Not yet, no.
So, I mean,
maybe it's not too late. Yeah.
I mean, player perspective, Trell, I mean, the tournament hasn't even started yet. Officially for MDI, there's no time trials yet or anything like that. I don't think it's the end of the world.
It can't get swapped. The moment time trials start and that rule is not included, then it would probably be too late.
Yeah,
it'd have to be before time trials.
Maybe it's
It'd be
time
cool if they
for,
did that.
for us to bust out the old Twitters and at some Warcraft devs.
At Warcraft.
Warcraft does not the people. Okay, anyways.
Hey, we have a good track record with Warcraft devs.
Yeah. So,
Track record.
you see all the people tweeting Warcraft devs. So I mean, I feel like they actually do read a lot of them, though.
They do.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to the next thing that we're going to talk about, which is we've got some changes, some balance changes. One is a set of Ny'alotha balance changes. Oops. I've just scuffed my... okay.
Nice tusks.
Okay, I fixed it. Whoopsie. Okay. We've got some balance changes that have come out for Ny'alotha. They are Skitra buffs. That is kind of good, I guess.
That's a good way of describing those changes to Skitra, yeah.
Yeah. So Skitra now has intermission phases at 33 and 66% rather than 20, 40, 60, and 80, which is actually pretty cool, right? Now we're seeing mechanics that we didn't used to see. And it's also a much less, silly fight. So I think this is a great change.
I mean, okay, so this is supposed to be a nerf because you're getting less intermission phases, so you should be getting less of the healing debuff, like the damage dot or whatever. But now you actually have to deal with the wall. So it's a buff. That's why I called it a buff.
I think it is fair to call it a buff, yeah. I think that like, it's harder now.
It seemed more fun when I did it this last week, but it was a little bit harder.
Definitely more fun. Okay, then in addition to that, we have Raden big nerf to mythic difficulty here. Void Collapse is now 6-second debuff instead of 14 seconds, and does a lot less damage. So that is much easier fight for anybody progressing on that one on mythic. And it's a lot less bad if you don't have immunities for the Void Defilement thing.
Mm.
And then
there's a lot of fights with immunities.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, keep going, yeah.
You're absolutely right, though. They hit a lot of these immunity fights, right? Ny'alotha and Il'gynoth are the other two fights that they hit. All three of these fights, they kind of hit them in a way where it's like, okay, it's now better if you don't have an immunity, but if you do have immunities, it's also better. So, like, the gap between how good strategies are with immunities and without immunities, except on Raden, I think, is still very big. I guess Il'gynoth isn't really an immunity fight, but Ny'alotha in particular is what I'm talking about here. So Ny'alotha, we have a Harvest Thoughts nerfs, where it's now doing 300 sanity drain, and it's doing 10% less damage. And Azeroth's Radiance, channeling your neck, now restores 25 sanity rather than 20. So the main thing is that, like, if you're trying to actually soak this the old-fashioned way, like, yes, it's better, but realistically, the best strategy by far is still to immune soak all the Harvest Thoughts, because you still get to fix the Evoke Anguish and the Paranoia overlaps with it, and you're just taking less damage when you do soak it, and you have a lot more wiggle room because your necklaces restore more sanity.
Absolutely nothing changed about this fight with those nerfs. Like 100% nothing changed.
I think it's fair to say that the best strat didn't change, but it also got easier regardless of what strategy you used, and it's possible that it's now killable without the best strat. Like, it's possible that it might now be killable without immune soaking. I don't know, man. I think it's still rough. I think it's still really rough.
I think it just gives people more... I think people would just get more wiggle room to, like, make mistakes in the first phase and things like that. Because you're just going to have some extra necks at your disposal, right? Even if you're using, like, some... You're less punished, yeah, but, like, if you have immunity soaks, you'll still want to use immunity soaks no matter what.
Oh, absolutely.
So much damage, and the timing of, like, when the Thought Harvester's damage goes out onto the entirety of the raid. So you're going to use it anyway. It's probably more likely they just want to make it more forgiving, so it's not like, oh, well, we can only use one neck on our first burn or something like that, or a second burn, so because that guy played so poorly with Paranoia and ran over everybody, we have to reset or something. You have a little bit more to work with.
Well, I don't think the problem is sanity. I don't in general think the sanity is your limiting factor in terms of your resource. I'm pretty sure it's survivability. I think being able to soak that second Thought Harvester, like while the Evoke is coming out, or the Thought Harvester cast with the Paranoia at the same time, you're just like, all right, I'm going to take entirely too much damage here.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. It's like you still want to use the immunity on that. The only benefit is really you just have extra necks to work with when you're progressing. That's all.
Yeah, it's like there is some sanity difficulty in the fight, but I agree that most of the problem is just damage, and Harvest Thoughts damage being reduced by 10% is nowhere near enough to make it livable alongside Paranoia or Evoke Anguish casts.
It makes me think a lot about like Warlords of Draenor. Like as we went into that expansion, they kind of like gutted a lot of mobile abilities for healers. Just by and large, like a lot of healers just didn't have good mobile tools at their disposal. So it just made it so much more difficult to be able to cast anything on the move.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh yeah, I'll just run around constantly paranoias and anguishes and everything and still maintain this level of HPS, right? Keep
Even
everybody
well-
alive, please.
You'd rather it be hard than not, right? I
Sure.
mean,
Coming
It's
into
just
the
the patch, it looked like the tier was going to be very lackluster healing wise, and they created some really good healing fights. I think the no dispel Il'gynoth strategy is kind of sad because that fight was far more interesting.
Yeah, so we also
that's
saw...
the thing is like they
Big
go
game Il'gynoth.
in really. Yeah, they go in really hard with like the spelling. Either like the spells are just like mindless, like oh, you see a debuff, you dispel it instantly, don't even think about it. And then there's other, then they give you a fight like Garm or now Il'gynoth, but they're like, oh, now you need somebody to call it out for you, or you need all kinds of organization around it. It's really like one thing or the other. It's kind of like kicking, I guess. If you look at like Zanesh, where it's like everybody has to be perfect with their kicks, or you instantly fail. You know.
It's really hard for them to hit a middle ground where it's like impactful but not life or death.
Yeah.
Well,
life or
it's also really hard to do dispel fights without. Imagine doing a dispel fight without a bunch of add-ons.
Yeah, that's
They
not-
removed the ability to dispel grasping tendrils because it cluttered up raid frames too much.
They did that in the middle of Carapace prog for me. Like, I'm trying to run and then I get slowed and I can't dispel it. I'm like, this feels horrible.
Just doesn't even make any sense. Okay, so like that is like okay, so they removed grasping tendrils dispel ability because it cluttered up raid frames too much and it was confusing people. But then you have the opposite, which is Il'gynoth and Guarm, where you have to have add-ons to be able to do the fight correctly. And you're like, all right, well, this is not very not very fair.
Yes, we did also see an Il'gynoth nerf to curse break damage on the smallest circles. Dispel is now doing 30% less damage. But again, another thing, so the Il'gynoth and the N'Zoth fights, I don't think it really... I think that we need to see more Argus-style nerfs where, like, yeah, they nerf the damage, they nerf the amount of a mechanic that goes out, and then they also prevent you from doing it the way they don't want you to. So, like, you could no longer pre-immune or immune the chains on Argus after they nerfed it. Whereas here, like, you can still just not dispel, or you can still just immune soak the Harvest Thoughts.
Well, you're never going to do Ilg any differently because you don't want to get mind controlled.
Well, I mean, I think that switching over to the Dispel strat for farm is probably better. Like, I think that the average amount of pulls per day that it takes to kill that boss with the no Dispel strat never gets below, like, 3. Like, you're never not going to wipe to that stupid boss a couple times with the no Dispel strat, maybe.
Maybe you're right.
Whereas if you get the Dispel
There's always a
strat,
lot of pushback of, like, learning a new strategy in farm content. Everyone just wants to be able to, like, clock in, do the same thing every single time.
Yeah.
You know, last week we killed it in 2 pulls with the no dispel again. So, but it's again just rolling the dice. You know, the week before that it took us like 15 pulls or something like that. People need to play to live.
yeah, people definitely don't want to relearn the fight for farm, and like that you can get the no Dispel strat clean, but still, I think that there's merit to them like nerfing the fight and then making the no Dispel strat not work. Like, it's I don't know. I guess it's maybe a little bit late for that. Maybe that was a week 1 change that needed to happen, but I'm just not looking forward to never doing the Dispel strat on that fight and always doing the no Dispel strat.
You're always going to be doing the no dispel strategy.
Yeah.
I did it at Tuttle's one time, and he was just getting no healing, and he was sitting there in Boomkin form, spamming regrowth on himself to try to live.
Okay, I stayed in the worst spot of that fight imaginable. I'm so far from the healer. I've just committed to healing myself.
Yep.
All right,
There's like 2 or 3 times over that you're just about to die, and just you spamming, and you look at your damage meters at the end, and you're like, well, at least I lived.
that's a Boomkin thing, though, right? Does Boomkin have a longer range, so you just take that spot that's not in range of any healers? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm barely in the range of the what's the Holy Pally ability that lets them get Rule of Law. I'm barely in range of Rule of Law. Like I am.
They don't
so
want to heal
far out.
you.
Yeah.
You're so far away, they don't want to heal you.
I am so far out that I barely am in range of Rule of Law.
All right, we also have, on the topic of nerfs, a nerf coming out to a corruption effect, Twilight Devastation. This was something that everybody was a little worried about for MDI. people were a little bit worried about 800 Corruption of Twilight Dev, pull the whole dungeon, and it dies or we die. And they've nerfed Twilight Dev to, for targets 6 through 10, it's dealing 50% reduced damage. And then for targets 11 plus, it doesn't do any damage. It disappears. What do you guys think about this change? Jack, have you had an opinion about the Twilight Dev changes here?
I think it's great, but I think they should also change Echoing Void or unnerf Echoing Void or something like that, right? Like, this is cool and all, but it's still, like, it's a good way to nerf it, but it's also, well, if you don't have Twilight Dev, you're still kind of screwed, right? Because there's such a massive difference in Mythic Plus, especially, of like, do you have Twilight Dev or do you not have Twilight Dev? Are you getting the good hits? Or are you not getting good hits?
Yeah. I feel like this nerf is aimed at like the MDI style stuff. Like, how often do you pull 10 targets in live keys?
It's not even that bad on 10 targets, right? Like on 10 targets, it's still 75% effective.
Oh, okay.
It's like,
how often do you pull 15 targets in live keys?
15 targets is where it's really bad compared to before.
So like triple Sarad Snap, anything with the blobs and Shrine of the Storm. What else?
Wakecrest.
Yeah,
maybe
there are a couple of pulls like that.
Yeah.
Much more so in MDI.
Peasants.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that is.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's
very niche areas though, very very niche.
Twilight Dev is still my top damage a lot of the time as a tank by a lot after the nerf in MDI. And so, like, we'll be pulling Razan, for example, with some Sky Screamers, and sometimes I'll do 250k damage, and sometimes I'll do 120k damage.
Oh yeah,
like at the end of the fight.
Our King's Rest opener is just we binding shot the minions Azul, and then our tank has to hit his Twilight Dev macro, or else they just fear us some of the time. If no Twilight Devs go off,
that seems wrong.
That's okay. Yeah. We've got it figured out now, but for a while we were progressing, that was what it was like. Yeah, I think it's
just the RNG is kind of a bother. Like, I hate relying on RNG to like meet a damage check or do something correctly, like the shot of minions Azul, like you're talking about. I don't like that stuff.
I think it is still it is still going to be played by tanks, right? But probably not by too much other than tanks in MDI. Now?
No, I don't think so, other than tanks. Pulls are too big for non-tanks.
Well, like Demon Hunters and Rogues are going to play Slap because the Rod-In trinket, or the Rod-In weapon for those who don't know, because that is by far the best damage per point of corruption. And then like
Gushing Wound
thing. Yeah, that thing is
really
OP.
good.
And then
Dealers using Gushing Wound get a lot of free damage on bosses just by playing.
Yeah, I've been actually doing that on live right now, is like comparing these like 445 gloves I have with Twilight Dev versus running my like 475 gloves with like Gushing Wound, and then running like tier 3 Mind Flay on top of that.
Oh,
and honestly, the damage is like really close together.
You obtain Gushing Wound scrolls and apply them to your gear. That is very skillful, Jack. Wow.
Oh, I'm on live keys, okay? I got it. I'm talking about live. I very skillfully got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Gushing Wound scroll is a really good item on live. You should try and find that.
I would love to have scrolls for corruption on live. Cost mementos or something like that, and you have to choose between sockets and corruption pieces.
Wow, Jack, that is a galaxy brain idea.
Nobody's ever thought of it, I know, right? But
if only there was several types of currency we could spend on corrupt that we already have.
Don't worry, 8.3.5 will fix it.
Well, that's kind of weird if you think about it.
Starfall buff?
Yeah, 8.3.5 is where Starfall buff is too. 8.3.5 is like it's February 30th. Yeah, it's the day that never comes.
They should have just announced that.
Yeah. Let us move on, indeed. All right. So again, our main topic this week is going to be, we're going to compare healer playstyles in both Mythic Plus and Raid. Maybe a little bit more of a Mythic Plus focus given our kind of background and what we've been mostly talking about recently, but we'll cover Raid a little bit too. And of course, Jack is our expert for that. But first, we have our Tip of the Week segment. My Tip of the Week is that in Horrific Visions, there are these odd crystals that you may have seen scattered about throughout the run. I think it only shows up after you full cleared once, is when odd crystals will start showing up in your runs. Because I didn't see it on some fresh characters as I was doing some Horrific Visions. Yeah. But once you've done a full clear, you'll start seeing odd crystals. There are 2 per zone, and Squishy, our friend, has made a post for Wowhead with the exact possible locations of where they can spawn in each zone. So check those posts out on Wowhead. It's really useful. You can just go and swing by those places if you have extra time in your run and pick up the odd crystals. Once you have the odd crystals, at the end of the run, you have to turn them into an ethereal near the boss. And you'll get more mementos per crystal the more crystals you find. So if you can find all 10, you'll get 42 mementos per crystal. But if you can only find one, you only get like 20 mementos for it. So it's kind of worth either doing a lot or not really bothering. And I wouldn't worry about finding them on like if you're going to be tight on time in your run. So if you're doing like 5 masks for the first time, just don't bother with them at all. They're pretty low efficiency. The amount of mementos you get for them doesn't scale with the amount of masks you're using, so it's really not that efficient in a high mask run. But if you're on a character where you're like, hey, you know what, I want to take it easy, I'm just going to do like 0 masks on this run, or 2 masks or whatever, and you could do more, this is a good way to get your memento income to still be good for that vessel use. So kind of is a little catch up there. So that's my tip. There's different locations in Orgrimmar and Stormwind, and Wowhead now has articles for both of them, so... yeah, Sistar, just put him in chat, and maybe I'll put him in the notes as well. Trell, what is your tip of the week?
My tip of the week is since this week's sanguine or quaking rather, my brain's fried. There's certain situations where the group's going to be stacked heavily, and with the new quaking change, it really punishes you because you take extra damage once you have 3 or more players stacked for quaking than in previous seasons. So let's say you're on the boss and workshop, the dog boss Cujo, and you're behind the crate as a group and quaking comes out. The natural instinct is for the group to spread into like 5 different places, but there's really not room for 5 different places. So you want to go in groups of 2 instead. That way everyone only takes like 40% health before damage reduction, and they don't have a chance of like body slamming someone in the middle of the group with 4 quakings. That happens a lot, I see, in groups. Not used to this new change.
Yeah, because right now, if you take all 4 of your friends' quakes, you're just dead. You're gone, right? Yeah. It's kind of cool. I like this change, but you're right. The like stacking exactly in the middle of somebody. That's kind of true for actually a lot of different boss mechanics as well. Like you'll see people who don't have that instinct kind of trolling on Il'gynoth as well, where their circles are growing and they're like 50% of a full circle radius away from somebody else, when it would just be much better for them to be right on top of each other. So yeah, there's kind of a, like, if you're going to hit somebody anyways, you should just conserve space and stand right on top of them with both quaking and Il'gynoth circles. All right, Tettles, you're up next in Tip of the Week, but of course you've hijacked it and turned it into Clip of the Week, so let's watch this clip. This is a doozy.
I hijacked it months ago, bro.
This clip is a doozy. Here, I'll put it in chat as well, so anybody who wants to save it for posterity can see it. But God, this is so good. So let's take a watch.
Oh God! Wait, we're all dead.
Oh my! Did we get mass rooted?
Yes.
I'm sorry. What just happened?
Here, let's do that again.
Oh God! Wait, we're all dead.
That is just the most classic Tettles thing I've ever seen.
So he gets mind controlled by the witch, and then he mass roots the entire team in a quake, and they all die.
Dude, I literally just have the worst luck possible. I don't even understand how it happens sometimes.
That's nuts.
That is called the Tettles effect. That's a name coined by Versify, who's actually in that group, which is where just Tettles gets invited to your key, and then all of a sudden it's kind of like the Final Destination, where just, fate conspires to kill your group.
Dude, it's like random shit that happens sometimes too. Like, how does that even happen?
That's crazy. I didn't even know that was your clip of the week when I wrote my tip. I'm glad we talked about Quake Stack.
Yeah, really.
Tip number 2, no Master. Why are you even running Mastered in there?
I was running like 50 corruption. And you can
okay. That makes sense. I was thinking that Typhoon was always what you played in Wakecrest, but yeah, I forgot about
What would I Typhoon in Wakecrest?
Right. Well, I mean, I thought just Typhoon was the default and Master was the exception, but now it's kind of the other way around, right? With
well, it depends on how much corruption.
Yeah.
I don't know. Most of the time, I don't go over 40.
I see.
Tip number 2: insta stun whoever gets mind controlled on the on the sister's boss.
That's the real tip of the week for that one.
I think that should always be like a healer thing too. Is if healers have a stun at their disposal, or like, I mean, even when I play my priest, I just instantly fear them to get something to stop them from using abilities.
Unfortunately, it looks like both the healer and the tank here are druids in this group, so there's not. Yeah, unless they play Mighty Bash.
Ward stop me.
That's the play.
Ooh, War Stomp,
that's
yeah.
something.
High
I'd
Mountain
push 'em.
Racial right through him.
Not that one.
Yesterday, my demon hunter in my group got mind controlled, and he fell barraged us to death. That was a dude.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
beamed before.
Fax has been getting mind controlled and focused iris beaming us in King's Rest. Yeah. All right. Let's move on to our main topic finally. After
my tip.
Oh, go ahead. I didn't know you had
I got one.
Perfect.
Oh, I mean, if everyone's gonna be stomping on each other and taking all kinds of damage, healer-wise, make sure that you're being able to top your mana off very quickly. If you get any like the sugar-crusted fish feasts, make sure you get biltong, which is the versatility food. Start up the biltong food buff first, and then whenever you drop your fish feast, you can drink water from the innkeeper and the fish feast at the same time to top off your mana pool, and you still keep your versatility food buff.
Oh, is that the only one that you? Okay, so
Yeah,
it overrides other food buffs, right?
because
Exactly.
it's like, oh, 45 verse is different from 93 haste, so we'll replace that. But 43 verse is worse than 93 verse, so it doesn't replace that.
That's okay. Holy shit! I've never
You
knew
know
that.
that, Tunnels?
So
No,
I
just
thought
knew
a
that
lot
it
of people
overrode.
knew it, but people
It's a
ask
good
me a lot.
tip.
I knew it overrode my haste. I didn't know like why.
yeah, so
that makes sense.
That's
Okay.
why verse food is better than every other food if you're planning to sugar crusted fish feast as a healer. And yeah, it's really cool that you can eat and drink at the same time. Like you can eat a fish feast and drink at the same time. That's a little way to speed up.
Twice as much mana. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, to be fair, I did not know that part where you could drink and eat the fish feast.
I knew that part. I didn't know the first food part.
See, look, we're putting all the info together.
Yep.
And there's a big difference, right, between like, you know, if you have to drink for 2 seconds versus 5, like that can really
yeah.
slow down the run over the course of the run. So that's a thing you'll kind of just notice. Like good healers are just like always topped in mana and ready to pull, and you never really see how, but that's how.
Yeah.
All right, so
You also just don't have to take that long as well, because if they immediately start pulling, you go from like 0 to 40%, and then after that pull, you go from 25 to 60%, something like that, and you just slowly try to make up for the deficit.
not the cheapest way to heal though, Keys. If you're buying,
it's not.
if you're buying 20 sugar crusted fish feasts per run.
That's another tip. Buy it at the beginning of the month. Don't
Yes.
buy any feast at the end of the month because it's from Darkmoon Fair. So the prices are a lot lower at the beginning of a month. So buy them now.
big tip.
Jack
yeah.
with the knowledge bomb right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you want to make some WoW gold, just buy them at the start of months and sell them midway through a month or end of month.
Literally, yeah. they almost double in price by the end of it.
Hashtag WoW economy.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move on to our main topic. So healer playstyles. This is kind of a follow-up to our episode from 2 weeks ago, which was about tank playstyles, and we'll probably bring this forward into DPS playstyles. I'm not sure how many episodes we'll split that into, because of course there are 4 times as many DPS specs as there are healer or tank specs. But we'll see what we decide to do on that one. Let's get started though talking about the different healer specs, and we're gonna start with Priest here, which is kind of an AutomaticJak special. So we'll start with Disc Priest, and I don't know, Jack, what's the kind of top line takeaway for how Disc Priest plays?
Raid wise, it's all about perfecting just ramp up moments, finding areas where there's predictable damage going out and building and preparing your atonements in order to heal it up. There's been like really good variety this season in particular for raiding, whether you want to run like Ever-Rising Tide, which was really popular last season. Just being able to overcharge your mana, you stop your mana regen, and then every cast that costs mana gives you a stack that increases your healing for a couple seconds. So you'd basically just use that in the middle of building up your atonements, applying to them the raid, and then you use that healing buff to deal damage. So you start dealing damage, and then the healing buff cranks even harder over the course of your DPS burn. You're also seeing World Vein start getting a lot of use because of how much it was buffed and how it buffs Mindbender's damage. Don't say you guys aren't all thinking that. It's like World Vein gives you tons of primary stat. Your primary stat buffs your Mindbender damage, and then every 1 minute you would just burn super hard with those two together. And that's been really good, as well as like Lucid Major for just mana.
Yeah, kind of the opposite of Ever-Rising Tide Major, right? Like one is going to make your mana troubles more pronounced, and the other is going to help you out with them.
Sure, and that's always like disc sensitivity to having extra external mana at their disposal, how they can turn extra mana into more throughput, things like that.
Yeah, they've historically been a very good innervate target for that reason, right?
They always are.
Yeah, although
yeah.
there's competition for the innervate, different.
Mistweavers.
Yeah.
The Mistweavers are coming.
Yeah, let me go find some homeless Resto Druid and Mistweaver Monks real quick to give them innervate. Resto Shaman and Holy Pally just don't use mana, man.
So that's Disc and Raid has historically been very, very powerful. This tier is no exception. The damage reductions that they bring and the damage that they do as part of their healing rotation are just so valuable in that context. But what about in Mythic Plus? Jack, have you been playing Disc and Mythic Plus at all this season?
Yeah, but quite a bit. I've been playing a lot of Mistweaver as of late, but this, of course, hasn't really changed too terribly much. It's a big difference between healing raids and healing Mythic Plus, because usually you're only having 1, maybe 2 targets, depending on the encounter in a raid environment. So usually you're just tunneling 1 target to do the majority of your atonement healing, and you're doing that with your Schism ability, which is like a 24-second cooldown, and the target takes 40% increased damage. So you just build up a bunch of atonements, you debuff the boss, and then you start slamming even harder damage over that period. But whenever you're in 5-mans, Schism has some potential, but it's not as strong because most of your atonement sources are coming from multi-dotting. It's coming from Purge the Wicked. You're having these 4 to 6 mob type of pulls. You dot up everything, and then you're allowing that extra damage to support you with healing the tank or support you with healing the group. But you have to actually muscle through and use a lot more direct healing than you would in like a raid environment.
How do you feel? How do you feel like
What's
Disc
up?
Priest damage is in Mythic Plus?
It is good, but it's too sensitive to like what the group's doing. So like you have the option between like Twist of Fate, which is a passive whenever somebody drops low, it procs a damage and healing buff, or you can run Schism, which is that single target burst of damage that you can get. And if you're able to get some pretty consistent Twist of Fate procs, it's really insane to run with that because you can easily top off the tank and easily start cranking up the damage of all of the dots that you have out at once. Problem
Disc Priest
is that...
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, Disc Priest is still limited on scaling it to AoE, right? Rather than Holy Pally's Consecrate damage?
That part of it is active versus passive. So like Consecrate, you just press every, 10, 12 seconds or something like that, and it does all the damage for you. Whereas Disc Priest can use their Holy Nova. They can multi-dot everything, and then they can start spamming Holy Nova. And whenever you're at least like, 4 targets or something like that, I mean, there's no cap to its damage or anything, so it can crank out a lot. But again, it's kind of, do you have time to spend that active, that activity moment or the activity globals or whatever to actually spam Holy Nova for damage?
Sure.
And that's kind of the problem is like Paladins have it, Druids have it, where they have just really strong passive damage, and then they can then go into kitty form, or they can even, pop wings and use that for DPSing. They have really good passive damage, and then they can have the option to deal even more with their activity time on top of that. Whereas Mistweaver traditionally, not so much this season, but we'll talk about that later, and then Disc Priest as well, even Resto Shaman, even Holy Priest, right? They have to spend a lot of their activity time to do the damage. Their passive damage is just not so good.
It's also just a lot scarier to be DPSing as Disc, because like, a player drops 50% as a Holy Paladin, and you're not too concerned, because if they drop to 20% and are taking more damage, you can just Holy Shock them or whatever, and they'll be fine. But if you're playing Disc and somebody falls low, like, even if they just fall to 50%, you're kind of immediately have to start healing them, because if they start taking more damage, you're gonna fall behind, right?
It can, and that's where like Spirit of Preservation from Rajani rep has been really helpful. It just increases your single target heal, whatever it is, whether it's Flash or a Shadow Mend or whatever. So that helps you a lot because now your single target healing is a lot stronger, and you're more easily able to crank them up very quickly.
Yeah, that's Shadow Mend, right, for Disc. So you really start blasting the
first cast gives a minor buff, and then the second cast guarantees crit.
Yeah. So that actually fixes quite a big problem that Disc and Resto Shaman actually used to have, right? Where it's like kind of just impossible to see somebody's dying and like cast on them twice and save them. Yeah.
I mean, Spirit of Preservation is incredibly good for that, but unfortunately I don't think it fixes the issues that Disc has, right? In Mythic Plus, normally.
It assists it. I think I think healing and tanking are kind of similar in that regard, where because there's these other essences that'll help support the areas where they're bad at, it makes it a lot easier to be able to just heal the content. And then you're kind of looking at, well, who can actually contribute good damage while healing in dungeons, you know, or bring that specific utility on like a raging week or necrotic week or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
fair.
So what are some things that we should keep in mind if we are playing with a disc priest in our group, Jack? Like anything we can do to make their lives better, or anything that we need to know to prevent us from dying horribly?
I think a lot of it, honestly, is on the player to work through. I've seen too many times where like this priest try to play that aggressive build where they're running with Schism, and then they just have a heavily diminished single target healing to be able to assist their allies, or they don't take advantage of some of their maybe more raid focused cooldowns, things like Rapture, where Rapture just increases the strength of your shields by like 200% or something like that. You know, people are a lot of times very afraid of like just spamming a tank with Rapture. I mean, you even have like Brewmaster tanks, for example, with Celestial Fortune. It usually counts it as their healing, but with absorption effects, it just increases the absorb itself. So your shields are actually larger on them.
Ooh, so you can pad the meters correctly. Yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
important. Yeah.
I didn't know that about Rapture and Absorb.
Mm-hmm.
Trell is just making a
So
note to
all
never
absorb
play with a
effects.
disc priest again because they'll yoink his HPS.
Yeah.
No.
So
I don't
you
care
can
about the
get shields
meters, man.
as big as their
I like
HP.
timing keys.
Yeah.
So
Very.
you have different things like that where, you know, knowing when to use Rapture, or even just dropping like barrier on the tank, you know, like people will be like, well, barrier is just it's a raid cooldown. Like, why am I using this? But it's a lot better than most healers' defensives.
Okay, so it's
25%
like
damage reduction for 10 seconds.
Yeah, it's basically an external. I call for Bark when I play with my friend Melody, the rest of Shaman all the time, and she gives me a Spirit Link. That's what you have to do sometimes.
And then people take your HP from you.
yeah. Then you spread the Grievous around the whole group. Beautiful. And a beautiful combination of affixes and ability. I think that that's a big part of the disc to Mythic Plus transition is not thinking about your cooldowns as like raid cooldowns that you have to save, right? It is just
Exactly.
It's all about just fire off the button. You know, you're never gonna get a barrier as good as you get on Ny'alotha, right? You're never gonna get a Rapture as good as a 20-person ramp Rapture. So if your mindset is still focused on not pressing those buttons until you get it that good, you're just gonna get no uses of those powerful abilities in the whole dungeon.
Yeah, and
exactly.
I think as a tank too, like something that you probably need to know whenever you're playing with a disc priest is pain suppression is a 3-minute cooldown versus Ironbark being a 1 minute or 45-second CD. So,
Right.
so even though pain stop damage reduction is slightly better than Ironbark, it is normally going to be worse for you as a tank. But you have to like know how to play around that.
Sure. And that's one of the biggest things is like making sure you're using that enough as well. If you're doing like no voice pugs and things like that, he either should be able to have, you know, Noga's party CDs or some kind of cooldown tracker to be able to watch, because a lot of times it's very simple, you know. It's, you know, dampen harm, it's last stand, shield wall, you know, set up your UI so that you're able to see when they're using that, when they're using active mit. Look at like prop paladins, you know, they have a lot of cooldowns that they cycle through, but there's very noticeable areas where, oh, I don't see Shield of the Righteous buff on them. They don't have, you know, Guardian of Ancient Kings, they don't have Wings, they don't have Ardent Defender, whatever. That's a good time for pain suppression, right? You know, there's a lot of times where healers need to be more active in looking at what the tanks are doing and what's going on with them to support them.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
I think that's a super underrated trait in like how you're playing around your tank.
You look at your prop pally and you see them start to backpedal and they have 1 second left on their Shield of the Righteous and you put the barrier on them.
Yeah.
Drop the dome.
There's a lot of areas where like you can expect, like you know what to expect, where you're like, oh, okay, well, a warrior is going into and he has no rage. Let me just drop barrier at the very beginning because he's going to take extra damage because he doesn't have blocks, right? And from running with him before, I know that he doesn't instantly pop a CD here. So now I have a little bit of support to be able to help him. And then later on, he might end up kiting, you know?
Sure.
Watching tanks, like every tank does this. They just start backpedaling whenever they're trying to drop necrotic before they like fully commit to dropping their necrotic stacks. Drop ring on them, and then they can keep on hitting like shockwaves or something in range while they're being ringed away, right?
Yeah,
It's true, yeah.
That backpedal is a very common tank thing that I think that is also a good thing to not do if you can start getting away from it. But it's really hard
it might
to,
not be right to do, but everybody
Yeah.
does it. So it's just like
I think honestly,
these behaviors.
I do it to show what's going to happen to my group. I don't think it's a bad thing most of the time. If you just barely move the pack a little bit, you're like, hey, I'm about to go this way. Everyone get ready, you know?
Fair enough.
Yeah. It helps me out. I know what it's going to happen. So it's
Alright,
projecting. It's like a turn.
Also, I was going to say, as the last thing, that's a really good healer quality. And as a tank player, that's like the first thing I know is like how well the healer understands the class I'm playing. And then I don't have to worry about like hardly anything with the healer. I just only communicate with them a small amount about externals, and that's it.
I think it's kind of harder with Brewmaster, but you have to like really watch. You have to like watch the stoplights. Like, do you see like red turn to yellow, turn to green, or blue? You know, is that not happening? Is it red for a long time?
Yeah, that's a good point.
You guys don't have cooldowns. You got like one cooldown, and I'm like, well, shit.
Dampen and fort. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. If you're not running bomb weave.
Yeah. I don't know what the like. Do they still play Dampen, Charles?
Yeah, you should always play Dampen until you're really comfortable in a group and you know that people are going to kick all the magic damage, and then you can play. But I would always tell players getting into keys or starting to push higher that just play Dampen until you know you don't.
Yeah, you'll see a lot of bob and weave in like very top runs, but it's
Okay.
it's not. It is like a lot less effective against magic damage than Dampen is.
Okay,
That makes sense. It's just like a slight gain, and it's not worth it if you don't know for sure.
In dungeons like Freehold, it's fairly free, but in a lot of the other ones,
Freehold and Underrot, I'd say it's pretty free.
Anyways, this is not a tank show. This is a healer show.
My house now. I'll call the externals.
Yeah, I'll call your shield block.
Yeah.
Well, let's close out the disc discussion with how does corruption work on disc? Is there anything worth specifically different worth noting for corruption effects on disc priests?
This is kind of boring with corruptions. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay.
Like, obviously, like in a raid environment, you love to have more stat procs and things like that. I've seen people playing around with Ineffable. Just cooldown reduction generally is nice.
Do you guys ever use
but
Hyperthread
there's
wrist
no,
traps? Is that good on Radiance? Like,
Not really.
not really. Okay.
It's okay. It's a couple extra seconds or something like that you get to take advantage of, but overall, it's nothing huge. So there's no like super amazing synergies that you really end up having. Ideally, you just try to go for like Twilight Devs or Gushing Wounds or extra damage whenever you're going in 5-mans.
All right, let's advance then to Holy Priest.
Ooh.
So this is the first thing I actually ever saw you play, Jack. Back in Legion, I tuned into a stream
Really?
and I saw you playing Holy Priest. Yeah, putting out the what is that called?
The healing?
Echoes.
The healing abilities.
Doing the healing. No, they had like echoes of light bouncing around and stuff. That was pretty cool. I don't know. Are you still a fan of this spec? Is this something you've been playing this expansion as much?
Not as much. They really everything from like Legion to BFA has just been like reducing abilities, reducing interactions. The new thing that they gave us was Salvation, which you just have like a 2-second cast and it spews healing out. There's nothing really that interesting at all. It's just a lump sum heal on top of Prayer of Mendings onto the group and Renews onto the group. So Renews your hot. Prayer of Mending is kind of like a charge that gets placed onto an ally. They take damage, the charge heals them, and then bounces to another ally.
So what is it that's causing this spec to be so much less popular than Disc in Raid and Mythic Plus?
It's a super strong raid healer overall. This tier in particular, they've just absolutely slammed out tons of HPS, and even with like Vision of Perfection getting buffed as well, being able to have the Vision of Perfection procs can be really strong for just raw throughput, something along those lines.
Okay.
But I would say that like 5-mans wise, they've never really had good support in their talent tree. There's too many talents that all sort of do the same thing and don't support 5-mans enough. Like Apotheosis, for example, helps get you a lot of like cooldown reduction, for example, for your Holy Words, but it's a very clunky ability to use. And you're really only wanting like the single target Holy Word Serenity to take advantage of. You don't really need the AoE in most cases. So getting cooldown reduction there also isn't that valuable.
Is there anything that somebody should know if they're playing with a Holy Priest in Mythic Plus? Like anything to play around from this spec in particular?
I think they should also be looking at like what they can do, especially as a tank, to maximize their own personal healing. Holy Priest and 5-man should be running with the cooldown reduction talent for their Guardian Spirit. So it's if the Guardian Spirit, which is a cheap death effect, if they don't die, if they don't proc it, the CD gets reduced to about a minute and a half instead of the 3 minutes.
Okay.
So with that, they just should expect to be constantly having GS on them so that they can kind of better support themselves, timing it with any of the healing that they can do for themselves, maybe running a little bit more leech or something like that.
Is it good? So if I get a Guardian Spirit on me, should I try to proc it, or should I try to save it and have that cooldown reduction?
Ideally, you don't. Ideally,
Okay.
you just look to see if there's any sort of healing that you can do for it. So if you're playing like Blood DK, for example, if you know that you're building up resources and don't want to burn, IBF or something like that, you call for the GS that you can try to use and try to take advantage of that extra healing.
That's interesting because usually when I play Paladin and I put up my own cheat death, I want to proc it and then heal myself. But with this one, it would be like heal myself to prevent it from proccing.
You could. I mean, it's kind of either way. I mean, you have to look at like whether or not you're confident that you'll be able to take advantage of the extra heal, because Prop Valley heals himself more the lower they are, but maybe you drop low, don't proc it, and then heal. So not only do you get the buffed healing because you're low, but the buffed healing because of GS.
I see.
Any class that heals themselves as a tank is really good with GS. Like Brewmaster feels really great with it. Vengeance Demon Hunter feels really great with it. You just keep yourself a monster.
So
Probably not so great just because you don't have a lot of self heals.
Yeah, exactly.
maybe do it in Lucid or something, but then you're not dying anyway, right? If you're Lucid
Lucid you just heal for a crap ton, right?
Yeah.
That's not very fair major for them to be playing. I feel like it's so good.
Is this the easiest healing spec to play if you're first picking up the game, Jack? So that's kind of
Probably.
a stereotype. Okay.
Yeah, I think like Holy Priest is a really good introduction for people who want to get into healing. It has a lot of just like fundamentals that you need to focus on, which kind of cross over into other healers. You have an AoE heal, you have 2 raid cooldowns at your disposal. You have some AoE, you have some single target, you have a couple different tools there, and it's sort of the class starts bleeding into everything else, basically, right? Things will get like more specific, where Mistweaver is like, you AoE heal by single targeting buddies, or, Disc Priest, which is just completely different. And then you go into our Shaman, which is just chain heal, and raid, right? You're almost always raid healing. You're almost always working on AoEs. So I think it's always a good introduction for sure.
All right, let's move on to Holy Paladin. Holy Paladin, kind of the new hotness in Mythic Plus, has been a dominant raid healer for a while now, because of the Glimmer of Light build just being so good. Still very good in raid, and also now very popular in Mythic Plus. It looks like for pushing high keys on live, it's one of the best specs for that, and also it's doing insane and in like Keystone Masters tournament now. It's also showing up a lot. So a spec that is really on the up and up, a really new, like if you're looking to play a Flavor of the Month healer, this is maybe the pick to roll up. And it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of all a cooldown based healer, right? It's all about wings being up, whether or not wings is up. And your major essence is just Vision of Perfection to make wings be up more often.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Jack, are you? How much Holy Paladin have you played this expansion? Is this one of the ones you played a little bit less of?
I've actually been playing a pretty decent amount. I've been prepping that character for like split runs with guilds and making sure that was like the alt that I kept up during progress and everything. So I've been playing it quite a bit, and it's just kind of how it goes with the expansion. You get deeper and deeper into an expansion, Paladin just starts getting better. And no matter the nerfs that they've applied to Glimmer over and over and over again, because it's an Azerite trait, it scales and improves over the eye level, and the eye level increases. So every single time they nerf it, and then it starts getting better, and it makes up for it. So they don't really nerf it deeply enough to prevent people from running it. They just try to find ways to play around it. And honestly, they have to, because outside of Glimmer, H Valley's abilities are generally pretty weak if you don't have the cooldown reduction to get tons of shocks out. Like the beginning of the expansion, it was just so weak.
Wouldn't that class just not be fun without Glimmer too? Like I think
pretty much.
That's like one of the Azerite traits that have been like a major hit, right? Where everybody's like, oh, hot dog, a Glimmer of Light. But a lot of other classes of Azerite traits are kind of meh.
Yeah, and I think like Disc Priest, for example, like the Azerite traits that you run are like extra duration for your tournaments, and then you run Shadow Trace to increase your Shadow or Pain damage, or you run Heart of Darkness to just increase your secondary stats. It's not really interactive. But Paladin, absolutely, it's just completely dominated it. And it's nice to be able to have crossover with like ret traits, where you can have an even longer duration on wings, or your judgments turn into an insane execute as well, right? So Paladin definitely has some cool things, but is absolutely carried by Glimmer. And that's kind of scary for like next expansion too.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Next expansion, whenever they gut all the Azerite traits, it's going to be pretty rough.
Glimmer of
I
Light
think that
is
they're
a
gonna
talent
make-
tree. Yeah.
I think they'll make it a talent, but I don't think it's going to be that amazing because one, it's not going to scale up every single tier like Glimmer does. For another, it's probably going to feel pretty garbage playing Glimmer with like very low haste, very low crit, very low whatever at the start of an expansion.
Yeah,
But
true.
we'll see, We'll see. I think Pally definitely is in a position where it needs to get some kind of rework or some kind of new abilities to make it more interesting.
Why do you say
Maybe
that?
make
Why
one
does
of
it
the-
need a rework?
Because it's just very basic. It's just overly basic in how it heals. You have a small cooldown for an AoE heal, and then you're really heavily focused on single target healing, and then transferring more healing into the tank. Back in the day, you used to have different kinds of AoE heals that you'd be able to spam or be able to take advantage of. You were more of a caster than a melee healer. But now they've taken out those caster abilities, and then they didn't really add much in the way of like melee type abilities. It's just like cooldown reduction. So I think HPally going into Shadowlands really needs to start looking for some Covenant abilities that are going to carry the spec or make it a lot more desirable outside of just like, hey, Glimmer's good, Because even if they make Glimmer a talent, it's not going to be that fun to play at the beginning of an expansion when your stats are garbage. And later on, it's not going to scale very well.
There's that Kyrian Covenant ability where they holy shock all legal targets in like within a 30-yard range. Could you imagine that with Glimmer still being active?
That'd be pretty sick.
That would be insane.
Yeah.
That would be insane.
Insane. Okay, so one thing that I've noticed with Paladins is that they don't have their mana bar just doesn't move. Like for some reason their spells just don't cost any mana. Is this just a bug? Like, is there just a Holy Paladin bug where they forgot to put mana costs on their abilities, or what is going on with that?
Well, that's the funny thing is, like, at the beginning of the expansion, they were really mana hungry because they couldn't generate that many Holy Shocks. And because their wings was used for basically a weird form of like Way of the Crane, right? It was their wings starts becoming damage into healing transfers for them. So when they actually have to cast their spells, they lose mana. But when you just cast Crusader Strike, which has no mana cost, and Holy Shock, which has a pitiful mana cost, that's basically it, right?
Dude.
I remember back in like Hellfire Citadel, they were planning to nerf Holy Paladin because it was so strong. And they ended up increasing the Holy Shock cost by like 50 or 60%. And Holy Pally's absolutely rioted. So to make up for it, they changed Aura Mastery, Devotion Aura, to not only affect magic damage, but also to affect physical damage. And then they changed Holy Shock back and didn't actually nerf it. So they just like ended up buffing it right before Hellfire Citadel. And then like Paladin continued to dominate. And they got a trinket then, which reduced the mana cost of like all of your abilities. So like it was the same thing. It's the same thing, different expansion. They never really like nerf H-Pally in a way that hurts them.
It's
You know what I loved? This week, we pulled the 5 Dervish pull with a Nimbus and the Dervi with the Nimbus in Temple of Specialist. And dude, okay, so first off, you're not supposed to pull that with the Nimbus. That thing is banned beyond belief. But somehow we lived through the pull. The Holy Pally is doing 250k HPS for like a full minute. And then we end the pull, he's at 96% mana. And I was just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
It's tough. It's tough, these spots where you're trying to nerf a spec and you accidentally buff it instead. It does happen all the time, though. But you can't really get too mad at Blizzard for doing that, right? It's like those days where you wake up and you're like, you know what? I'm going to go to the gym today. And so you get in your car and you're planning to go to the gym. And then an hour later, you're just back home and you didn't go to the gym and you did go to McDonald's instead. Like, that's basically what happened here. Is where
Stop attacking me.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think all of us have done this.
I think we've all been there.
Yeah, that's how you accidentally buff a class instead of nerfing it. You just get home and you're like, damn it, this is the exact opposite of what I wanted to do.
So much to do, but you just take a nap instead.
Yeah. All
Burn more
right.
calories that way.
True.
True.
All right. So on the to close out the Holy Paladin discussion, is there anything that grouping with a Holy Paladin we should be aware of? about them? Is there anything that really we should look for from the Holy Paladin?
If you're a demon hunter and you constantly pull threat from the tank and your blur's on cooldown, make sure you take advantage of the bop so that you don't get killed.
True.
Because
What about if you're an unholy DK?
Yeah.
oh, good luck. you are like, you gotta find a holy pally to only play with them all the time. Like, all right, Jim, maybe the bop, we're going in every single time.
One question I have about Holy Pally is: have you played with Ineffable Truth, or would that be good for Holy Pally in any way? For Pro Warrior, I feel like this might be similar. Like during Avatar, I can clap every global on baseline, but with Ineffable Truth and a bunch of haste, I can clap every single global. So would that be...
there was an article on Wowhead of fixing Ineffable Truth, where Ineffable Truth was bugged for abilities with charges. And I specifically looked at it for Renewing Mist, for Mistweaver, but I don't remember if it was bugged for Crusader Strike or not. I gotta see if I can find that article.
I remember seeing that article. I didn't see any Paladin abilities listed on there.
Okay, then maybe it worked properly. But yeah, Ineffable is insanely good. You just... Well, if you're not getting shocks faster, you're getting Crusader Strikes faster, and then you get more shocks out of it, and it's ridiculous, you know.
And your wings is coming back faster too, right?
And your wings is coming back. Your other wings.
Holy Avenger.
Holy Avenger. I was about to say Ardent Defender.
Yeah.
Ineffable Truth is something I think is very underrated for a lot of tanks and healers, especially. And people just haven't been able to test it because it's hard to get the freaking corruption on live. Like the only time I even got to test it was a week ago when I got Tournament Realm on Pro Warrior.
Yeah,
I feel like we might see some crazy builds with that in the future.
I think for me personally, one of the most important things to know about playing with the Holy Pally is pulling around their cooldowns. And like they are too cooldown reliant to almost a fault, because like if their wings aren't up or their Holy Avenger's not up or their Aura Mastery's not up, then they absolutely do nothing. They just kind of stand there in Crusader Strike. But if their cooldowns are up, then they have a lot of unique utility and a unique value. But you have to make sure that you are playing around them. I think that is the most important thing that I've ever seen from a Holy Pally perspective.
Sure. And like Sis said, the Fire Mage of healers works out really well, you know. I think like a lot of like learning paladins, you know, like new to moderate level, are very tempted just to hit that wings button on cooldown all the time, right? But yeah, a lot of times it can screw you. And you've seen a lot more paladins these days running with like Formless Major to steal beam or even Blood of the Enemy on like single target. They can just absolutely crank when they have their cooldowns running, and their single target gets even stronger. And it's just about, part of it's knowing the timings. For example, it's like 45 seconds between Kragmaw tantrums. So knowing when they can start, like what do they want to use on the pull? Or do they use a cooldown on the pull just to add damage? And then they have another cooldown for the first tantrum, and then they kind of switch back and forth, right? Yeah. How they want to be able to maximize those, when they want to use Holy Avenger and Wings together at the same time, whether they want to spread them out. It's a lot of like planning to it, and it's nice to be able to see for some classes like healers, because usually we don't have cooldowns that are healing and damage, but Pally's quite unique in that regard.
Yeah, they're all Ret Pallies in disguise. They really want to play Ret, but for some reason they're forced onto Holy, and so they always pop wings for damage. That's the only thing you need to know about Holy Pally.
And you get one heal every 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's my biggest thing about Holy Pally rerollers or people that are learning the class. And a lot of them just like really want to do damage, and they stack all their cooldowns like Jack said on pull. But what the challenging thing about Paladin is you have to learn how to heal outside your cooldowns or plan them out in a good chain so that you can keep your group alive first and then deal a lot of damage.
Sure.
All right, let's move on to Mistweaver Monk. This is another Jack special. And this is a spec that's on the up and up a little bit. You know, it's been not super popular throughout most of BFA. It hasn't really broken out too much in either M+ or Raid. But we are gearing up for a Mistweaver MDI, I think. I think that Mistweaver will probably be the dominant healer in this MDI. What about Mistweaver Mythic Plus healing is so good in MDI, Jack?
Way of the Crane.
Yeah.
So with 8-2, they give us Conflict and Strife, which gives us a PvP talent. And Way of the Crane is just a 1-minute cooldown that gives you 15 seconds of glory, where all your damage gets converted into healing for 3 targets. You start spinning, and every single action of the spin will be healing your nearby allies. And it allows, because you're already pulling so heavily and you're already planning around all of your pulls already, it makes it so much easier to have massive control over when is damage going out onto the group and how heavily can you pull. Because whenever you're doing these massive pulls, you're having aggro going all over the place, you're having damage going all over the place, and you need to quickly heal everybody all at once and add tons of damage. So it kind of just does both of them at the exact same time.
Yeah, so in MDI, it's because the pulls are just so big, right? That, like, you're pulling 20 mobs, and Way of the Crane is just, it's literally lay on handsing everybody every second that you're spinning with it active.
Well, you're also playing Secret Infusion, right? And then you, like, once you pop...
So
okay, so, yeah, you can explain, sorry.
Yeah, so Secret Infusion is an Azurite trait that whenever you pop your Thunder Focus Tea, you are able to reduce the CD or augment other abilities with it. So, like, if you use it for Rising Sun Kick, it procs versatility with Secret Infusion. So you can get an extra Rising Sun Kick out of it, and then you can get even more spins. If the pulls are gigantic, you can also use it on Renewing Mist, and then you can get Insane Haste. And then you can start using that Insane Haste to just spin even faster and faster and faster, right? So you have a really big cooldown that you're able to just start cranking out even more damage or even more healing at that moment.
You know, something about Way of the Crane I was wondering is, does corruption damage go into Way of the Crane healing at all?
I wish.
Okay. Same thing as Disc Priest, right?
You just
completely...
Unfortunately, no.
You just play Way of the Crane Twilight Dev, and you just proc a Twilight Dev, and it nukes your whole
You don't
group
even
to pull.
spin.
Yeah.
You just stand there.
Yeah.
Some classes actually kind of benefit from that. Because, like, if I have my Lucid Dreams major going as prot, and I proc a Twilight Dev, I get top.
Well, it's Leech.
Because I get so much Leech.
Well, it's
Yeah,
Leech.
it
Right.
still work with Leech, sure.
Yeah. It'd be cool if Mistweaver had that, but it'd probably be a little overkill anyway.
Yeah, I mean, if you pull large enough, you don't really have to worry about it, right? That's the thing, is that in live keys, you don't really pull that big. So oftentimes it's not always the best option to run with Way of the Crane, in my opinion. The community, I think, is kind of split on it. But a lot of times whenever you're running in certain dungeons, King's Rest is a pretty good example of it. Workshop especially is a really good example of it. You don't really have that much density of the mobs. And the ones that are really big, for example, you'll have like some of the garbage packs, right? You'll have like Machimba's room. It's like, yeah, I have like one pull where I do a lot of damage. Or you'll have, what are the goos in Workshop that explode on death?
Living Waste.
You know, the ones...
Yeah.
Living Waste.
Oh,
You're like,
yeah.
I do a lot of damage for like 2 seconds, and then the rest of the dungeon, you know, you're popping Way of the Crane on like 3 to 6 targets. And that's where it doesn't really do that much healing at all.
But it may be more overall, so it kind of gives a skewed perspective sometimes.
Honestly, I would rather steal Beam with Formless Void. I'd rather steal Beam with Formless Void and maybe Crucible if it's like a Tyrannical week or something like that to do damage instead.
True.
Those are
That's a good
usually
point.
more productive ways of doing damage, because the big reason why you would take Way of the Crane in Season 3 last season was because you didn't really have a good way of dealing damage and healing at the same time. Your damage was active. You didn't have any dots. You still don't. And all of your healing is very active. Because even if you toss up like your hots, for example, with Renewing Mist, which is just a long-lasting hot that always jumps whenever a target's full HP. It jumps to whoever's lowest afterwards. Or Enveloping, which is like a very expensive but very strong hot that you usually just toss in your tank. It was just such a pain to keep on refreshing it that you never really got a lot of good time to deal damage. So what you would do, so now what you're able to do is with Rising Mist, all of your Rising Sun kicks are extending the duration of all of your hots. So you can Essence Font as you go into a pull, keep your Renewing Mist on cooldown, toss an Envelop into the tank, Thunder Focus T, hit your Rising Sun kick, spin, Rising Sun kick again, and then keep on spinning, and then you just let your hots do all the work. You increase and extend the duration of all your passive healing, so you can spend more active time dealing damage.
Now, I've seen some logs of this strategy taken to a bit of an extreme with expedient corruptions. And then So have you? I have to ask about this. How does this work? The like 250k HPS Mistweaver logs I've been seeing.
Sure. So like every other day, actually every single.
Oh, sorry,
past 2 weeks.
You're cutting out a little bit.
Am I? Is this helping? Maybe get a little bit closer.
Maybe, yeah.
Okay.
So how does that work?
Basically, every day for the past 2 weeks that I've been playing Mistweaver, everyone's like, "Oh, did you see this log of like 200k, whatever it was?" And basically, what Mistweavers are doing is they're stacking Expedient, and now they're going to be stacking Ineffable Truth because it works with Renewing Mist now, and they're stacking heavy amounts of haste to be able to reduce the Rising Sun Kick cooldown even more. they're constantly using their rems on cooldown, or as often as they can, extending the duration of them, and then basically they just ramp. So they will toss out these hots, keep on extending them as much as they can, and then when damage goes out, all they are doing is just spamming Vivify as hard as they possibly can in order to get really high results. You'll see some enveloping use here and there, maybe for like a fight like Mout, for example, when haste is high and your mana regen is ridiculously high as well. But often it's just using your rems to improve your Vivify. So Vivify is like your single target heal, and it heals the target and every ally that has Renewing Mist on. So you use your kick, you extend your Renewing Mist, and then whenever you're casting Vivify, you're hitting 5, 6, probably even higher targets now with Ineffable Truth working with Renewing Mist. So you just get ridiculously absurd amounts of renews on the raid, and then you just start pounding HPS.
So mod is a bit of a special case with the mana reduction or mana return thing going on.
Yeah, it helps there. And basically right now, Suplift said this probably 2 weeks back or something, and I really agree with it. Mistweaver today is like beginning of the expansion Dispriest and Legion, where if you have a lot of mana, you just do tons and tons of HPS, right?
That's right. I remember that.
Yeah, so it's kind of similar in the like you gotta ramp up, and then you just at some point you switch the gear and you just stop putting out atonements or renewing mists, and you start just doing damage. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, you basically just say, all right, it's time to go, and then you start spamming as many.
Why did they ruin fist weaving for that spec? I feel like it's I don't understand.
They have been really indecisive about what they wanted to do with Mistweaver. Probably hated it, I think it was after MOP going into WAD where they started removing whole, or was it after WAD?
What did you say? Hold on, you cut out there. A second.
I don't know what I need to do to fix this.
Do you have are you using voice activity on Discord?
Yeah. Do I have to
maybe lower the threshold?
Let's try the input sensitivity.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Still sounds good. Yeah, cool.
Okay, cool. What they were doing, they've kind of like bounced back and forth a lot of times as to like what they want to do. They removed Chi, for example. They removed Holy Power, so because they didn't like having healers with like a secondary resource in addition to mana, something like that. And I think that they really focused too much on making sure classes were as different from each other as possible going into like Legion, for example, where they're like, well, we tried this thing with fist weaving for monks and it didn't really work, so let's only allow disc priests to be the ones that DPS to heal, something like that, right? And then
it feels bad.
and then Mistweaver just got like shafted for a lot of Legion. I think didn't really have like a special place or anything anywhere.
Yeah, I think fist weaving was like renowned as like one of the coolest things that they've done, and the fact that they just removed it because they didn't like it as a fundamental design is
it's rough.
Interesting.
Like,
yeah, it's interesting.
The whole idea behind Mistweaver initially was like, I think that there were even interviews where they're like, yeah, we feel like the healers are always fairly similar together, and that's kind of a product of them making classes easy to learn, hard to master. But then they're like, well, let's make something very different in case healers really need a change of pace. And I think that's ridiculously true, that there needs to be a regular kind of change of the pace with the healers to make it so that you want to play something different, or that you'll want to play a certain spec, and that you're not just choosing a different color for a healer that plays mostly the same. But I think it's kind of gone overboard right now because they've given no tools or very poor tools to the other healers to contribute damage while healing, that if corruption didn't exist, or if there was more of like DPS checks that were played around corruption, maybe, that you would have just seen paladins and dispriests even more so dominating because their passive damage is so high. Like our shaman, it's actually fair because they can just choose to be a battle shaman and they can do absurd DPS single target, right? But with like Holy Priest or Resto Druid, those classes are really lacking. And up until they buffed Rising Mist for Mistweaver, they're in like the same boat.
So let's talk about Resto Druid next then, because Resto Druid is a spec that has really fallen off in Mythic Plus, I'd say, this patch. I mean, it's by no means a bad healer in Mythic Plus. It's still one that you'll see in top runs on live. It's still one that has a chance of being in some MDI keys. But last season, the last 3 seasons before this, it was a wall of orange on Raider.io and in the MDI.
I think we're back to the Legion, like, like dichotomy where it's Holy Pally and Resto Druid at like I think right now it's like a 75-25 split for Resto Druid to Holy Pally.
Okay,
I think
so
there's still way more Resto Druids.
Still, yeah. How much do you think that? Okay, so Jack, do you have an opinion on what the best healer for pushing live keys is? Do you think it's Holy Pally or Resto Druid, or do you think it's just really close?
I think it's close. So if you're looking at every single week and you're judging everything like equally, then I would say it would be Druid. But if you're looking at like what are the easiest weeks to push and we're only going to push super hard on those, then absolutely Paladin.
Right, so that's gonna be an effect that makes Holy Paladins have higher scores than Resto Druid, even though Resto Druids are better on more weeks.
Probably. I mean, because like with some of the group comps that we're seeing now of like Demon Hunter, Mage, Warrior, probably Holy Paladin, and then you bring a whatever DPS, right? You know, again, you just time all those cooldowns together. You just obliterate certain trash packs. You have CDs when you need them. Something along those lines. You just always are able to blast whenever you're on those ideal weeks. But whenever you're dealing with a raging week, where you're like, all right, we need to get a hunter, we need to get Tettles or something, you know, to be able to deal with that. Or you bring the rest of Druid. You know?
Yeah.
Man, what the hell?
Tettles or something. Can't remember the name of that class.
Yeah, the Tettles.
Okay.
So I mean, it's still super strong, and it's going to take a while before the quantity of Druids starts moving more into other classes.
Right, because so many people have been playing Druids for so long for Mythic Plus healing, and it's also true that they're pretty versatile in that they bring Entangling Roots, Stealth, Battle Res. They bring all these effects that you're kind of looking for one of each in your group, and you just bring a Resto Druid and you're like, okay, it doesn't matter. We don't need, you know, to bring a Tettles for the B-Res or whatever. We can just have our healer do it. Whereas with the Holy Paladin, there's kind of that long list of like, okay, where do we get our B-Res? Where are we going to get our stealth and our knock and everything?
Yeah, they just don't fit
that's
in
the thing
the
is like the
comps.
unique.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's like the unique utility that Druid brings, because like there's some classes, for example, like a Shaman, where they bring like a good kick, they bring an interrupt, they bring a slow, or sorry, they bring a AoE stun, they bring a slow, but those things aren't like hyper unique for M+. There's a lot of DPSers that already bring those, whereas Druid has a lot of very unique things with, you know, the knockback, with Vortex, Soothe, etc.
Iron
Bark, yeah. So I think it's a mix of like, is the utility needed and how unique is it?
What is it that's keeping Resto Druid out of raiding at a high level this whole expansion?
Good utility.
Okay.
Beginning of the expansion, Resto Druid was really strong because Tranquility was really strong. You'd go like 2-minute Trank and you could easily just have that massive stabilizing force at the start of an expansion.
Yeah, I forgot we had that in Uldir. Yeah.
Yeah. Because generally what happens at the beginning of expansions is because you're so resource starved and because healers' ability to top off a health pool is so diminished, the damage is usually really steady. So your HOTS, one thing, are getting full value, but raw throughput raid cooldowns are also really valuable. So beginning of X packs is usually really favorable to like Holy Priests or Resto Druids. Even Mistweaver Monks was really strong in Uldir as well, because there was, again, lighter AoE damage, but you also needed a lot of spot healing, and Mistweaver did that very well on top of it. But as you get later on, you know, EP, like Squishy's saying, you have effective health, right? That becomes even more important. Damage reduction becomes even more important. It was like a perfect nightmare, really, in Eternal Palace, where there's so much burst damage and there's high damage requirements on top of it. So you bring the two healers that deal passive damage and they provide damage reduction. So it's got really ridiculous.
What do you think is more important, having like a good defensive cooldown or the ability to be able to do damage passively? Like, obviously for raiding, those are probably the two biggest things of why Holy Pally and Disc Priest are so sick, is because their cooldowns are good and they do passive damage. Do you think that either of those is more important?
I think the damage reduction is slightly more important, but I think it also just sort of depends on what boss that you're on, what boss you're progressing on.
That's fair.
Because you can always have, like, even though, like, for example, Resto Druids don't have great passive damage in a raiding environment, or it just costs them a lot of activity time to do it, they can still do it, right? Like, you can start adjusting your healer team, even if your healer team doesn't have great passive damage, to start contributing more. But if you're going into Zakul, for example, and you don't have Devo and you don't have Barrier, you're going to lose DPS here and there almost every single time, right? At least when you're on early progression on it, right?
Yeah, the Zakul experience was so different with 3 disc versus with 0 disc.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Wait, did you say 0 disc? Hold on.
Yeah, I mean, okay, whatever. Obviously,
whatever
0,
extreme.
Yeah, the extremes were very different, right? Like if you didn't have barriers or Aegis of Light or Devo for those damage events, it was just so different. People were so dead every time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, that's kind of the thing about Resto Druid has been that it kind of does passive damage in Mythic Plus, because it like pre-hots before every pull, and then it can just cap form and do damage while still healing with those pre-hots. But in Raid, that doesn't really come together, because you don't get this like the ability to pre-hot before pulls in Raid. Well, I mean,
and I think one problem,
yeah.
One problem with Resto Druid is that they've really kind of fallen out of having a good niche. Like moving Trank was so incredible and had so many really strong uses throughout all of Legion's raids that it was amazing to bring it, and it was very noticeable when you did bring it, right? But now that they don't have that, they're not like, they're pretty mobile, but they're not nearly as mobile as they used to be. And other healers are sometimes even more mobile than they are. Like you look at like Holy Paladin, for example, on like Ny'alotha, right? I mean, yeah, they have to be in melee, they have to be hitting something, but their mobile healing is still super strong.
Oh yeah. As long as they can hit something with Crusader Strike, then they're hard chilling.
You could imagine,
and that's not really a Holy Paladin thing. Like that shouldn't be a Holy Paladin thing. They're
So
big,
stupid.
bulky, weighty Paladin and wearing plate armor, but they're able to move better than a Druid can while healing. It's kind of insane.
The thing on Ny'alotha as well, like we were talking earlier about the difficulty of like healing after these harvest thoughts where you're moving for evoke. Like the difference between having a mobile trank there and not would be huge, right? If you could have hey, we're gonna trank this evoke, while we're spreading out, and the Druids just trank in and going and dropping their evoke. Instead of like right now, we're seeing raid groups have their disc and their Resto Shaman like pre-move so they can heal, and a Druid niche would be like doing that trank while moving and getting to stay in the group and everything, but. Without that,
If they kept mobile trank, every single tier would have fights where it'd be ridiculously helpful to have a moving tranquility.
Mechatorque,
Jaina,
yeah,
Jaina would be really big. Having everybody with hots on them, and maybe I'm not a Druid expert on this, so maybe you move Trank into a flourish, and then the team breaks off, and then you have tons of strong hots on everybody as you're running around.
Oh yeah, you trank the transition to the into after you jump off the boat, you're tranking while everybody's walking together.
That'd be really good. Yeah.
I
reminds me of
Iminar.
Iminar, this soul.
Yeah, and Iminar just walk
whatever.
across the bridge, press Trank.
Totally forgot about that.
It was pretty noticeable when we didn't have a Druid in for our reclear. I was like, oh, I'm dead.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's ridiculous.
All right, let's finish up our discussion here with Shaman. So Shaman is a spec that has broken into world first rating this tier. Didn't see too much of it in previous tiers this expansion, but Maybe Cakes, world first Resto Shaman, and a lot of other guilds replicating that, playing a Resto Shaman on a lot of rosters. What has led them to show up in high level rating this tier, Jack?
Kind of a combination of things. I think the damage patterns have been really good, in particular, where you do have constant ticking damage at very critical points. So it's extremely good to be able to have a Spirit Link totem. People are able to stand in your healing range for quite a long time. There's not too many spread fights where you're chain healing a Tettles in Africa or something like that. Maybe Il'gynoth. Actually, definitely Il'gynoth is a poor fight. Il'gynoth's a horrible fight for that kind of thing.
We
saw
a
lot of areas where it's really good.
We saw actually maybe play as priest for Il'gynoth, so that they swapped off the shaman for that fight because of that not being good. But yeah, chain heals.
But as you got into like the later fights where it really mattered, they have such a strong way of like transitioning between damage and healing when they need to. And there's often been multi-targets that they can flame shock up and get even more lava bursts into the priority target that they need to, whether it was Carapace, whether it was N'alotha, right? There's a lot of good opportunities for that.
Yeah.
So overall, their kid just brought you a lot. I don't know if he was running Ankh Totem or not, but Ankh Totem almost always has good applications when you're in a really well-organized raid group.
That is a sick ability, honestly.
It's insane.
I think Resto Shaman gains a little bit more value when the meta doesn't include a Feral or Guardian Druid either, right? Because of Windrush or Elemental Shaman as well. So like if they're the sole spec out of those four,
Oh yeah,
Windrush Totem's pretty big.
Yeah, and we saw Windrush Totem seeing some good use on a couple fights this tier as well. Like there's movement on Carapace where Windrush is really valuable in the last phase. It's good on Ny'alotha too. So there's a lot of spots for that to be potent.
It depended on it really.
How about Mythic Plus? What Mythic Plus Resto Shaman? Most of the expansion wasn't too popular, but now that we've got like Spirit of Preservation coming in, making the tank healing better. There's been a kind of over the past 6 months, we've seen a couple of different random Resto Shaman buffs coming in as well, like Healing Surge throughput buffs and buffs to some talents as well.
I think right now,
yeah.
I think yes, the essence is the homogenized buffs to all healer classes have definitely helped make Mythic Plus healing easier, right? But I think at the end of the day, they really need to actually hit these problems that Resto Shaman or Holy Priest or even to some extent Disc Priest have in the talent trees. I think our Shaman's probably one of the best examples of a healer that has so many different ways to raid heal and so few ways in the talent tree, that is, to support their M+ healing, right? Like you have all these talents that are just like, well, this one raid heals, and this one raid heals, and this one raid heals. I have the 3 options, and then they all feel horrible to use in 5-mans. Or you have something like Flash Flood, which whenever you consume your Tidal Wave stacks, you get your haste buff or you speed up your casts and stuff, right? And it's like, well, yeah, I can run that for 5-mans, but it doesn't mean it's good, right? it's some like minor buff here. I mean, Mistweaver had it, for example, last tier, actually for most of the expansion, where you could run Upwelling, which made your AoE heal channel longer, which is garbage in a 5-man. You had Rising Mist, which was super weak and you couldn't run it. Then you had Focus Thunder, which gave you another charge of Thunder Focus T, right? So you're like, yay, I can get like an extra Rising Sun kick, or I can get, another powerful Enveloping, or, a free Vivify, whatever. But it didn't mean it was really good for 5-mans. It was just the option that you would take. And I think our Shaman in particular has way too much of that for 5-mans.
Yeah, like the good talents are the chain heal talents, right? And then there are talents that do single target but are not powerful, right?
Yeah, so I think that like too many of them just do the same thing in different ways, and it's just bad. Like they really need to start revamping a number of the different talent trees, because no matter what, there's going to be a best talent option. So instead of trying to make like Mythic Plus type talents, which would be really cool, they really just need to start cranking up the baseline talents for each class. Because what's actually propelling classes right now? What's propelling tanks, for example, so that they're going to be a lot more equal today? Like what's propelling healers? It's essences. It's essences and it's power creep, right? Tanks get better self-mitigation as time goes on. Healers are able to top off health pools more rapidly as time goes on, right? It's not like it's honestly just homogenize things across the board. If people are worried about like, oh man, well, if you make them have good talents, that'll make them better for Mythic Plus, that's going to homogenize it too much. I'm like, we're already at that point. That's what essences are. They're buffs that go to everybody,
Yeah.
Something to do with the corruption too.
I think Shaman
is corruption.
I think Shaman is the most interesting healer from like a Mythic Plus perspective, and I wish they could be brought to groups. They have an AoE stun, they have a 12-second interrupt, they have a Hex. Like Spirit Link is very cool and very good for certain things. Tremor Totem, Purge, like they have so many things of like unique utility that you want in a group, but their healing is lackluster and they have to choose very heavily whenever they're doing damage. They're very binary in terms of like damage versus healing.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Like their passive damage is poor. Their AoE damage is almost non-existent. Like I don't know why they capped Chain Lightning to 3 targets.
Chain Lightning, bro.
It's you do the last boss's shrine and like, okay, Shaman are cranking damage on that single target, but then you're like, hey, should we pull eels while we've got the healer buff? And the Shaman's like,
no.
I don't help, man. There's more than one of them. Like, what am I gonna do?
Yeah, there's more than one of them, and you don't want them to live long enough to take advantage of the flame shocks that you would toss up on them.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
I think it's also not great that they don't have a external. Like their external Spirit Link, which is it's cool. It's cool, but like you're gonna link your tank for survivability, and it's a 3-minute CD. Like,
yeah, I mean you will, and it's good. It is good in that way, but it's just like they're missing another ability that is on a shorter cooldown that is useful for the tanks.
That's my biggest thing with shamans. I like playing with Resto shamans. There's only two things that I don't like. One, they struggle with tank healing, and two, they can't dispel poison. I think the lack of poison dispels is insane. Like, why would a single healer not be able to dispel poisons?
The difference in like danger between curses, diseases, and poisons in Vibemans is so massive, right? Like, there's two big diseases that really stand out for me in dungeons, and it's in Underrot and it's in Junkyard. And both of those you can just muscle heal through if you can't dispel them, right?
Right.
That's how both of them work.
I think Dranos is having a heart attack.
Wait, I just realized that all the healers except for Shaman have poison dispel.
Priest.
Yes.
Priest.
Priest.
Well, yeah.
Priest and Shaman. So
Okay.
both Priest and Shaman have offensive dispels. They have
That's right.
Like bad
they have purges.
Okay.
So because they have purges, they can only dispel one school. So Shaman can only do curses, and Priest can only do diseases.
I see. I mean, the offensive purge is useful for sure.
It's too niche, though, especially when you're playing Horde with Blood Elves. It's like way too niche. Like, curses, diseases, and offensive purges are all really, really niche. But then you have
Poisons.
5 stacks of poisons in Siege of Borealis that you can't remove, that are constantly being refreshed, and you can't kick it. You have to physically stun each guy in order to stop them from putting poisons on their weapons, right? It's incredibly debilitating. Like, why is it that you can kick the poison effect from the Hired Assassin in Motherlode, but you can't kick the poison application from the Buccaneers, whatever they're called in Siege of Borealis?
Yeah, exactly.
The invaders,
I just don't get it.
Yeah,
like, that
I don't
kind
understand.
Of combination of class design plus mob design just doesn't make sense to me. Healers should be able to dispel all that stuff, in my opinion, regardless of class fantasy. And then there also should be counterplay if they can't.
Yeah, like they really should add a potion that competes with the DPS potion that will dispel any disease, curse, poison, whatever, right? Like
Purification potion. Purification
that
potion.
only dispels one stack.
Yeah, they just
that
buff
only dispels one stack.
Just buff purification potion.
There are some really bad diseases too that, like,
trust me, I gave my tank a purification potion. I was like, yeah, use this. We'll be fine in Borealis. It dispelled one stack of the poison and then immediately got refreshed.
Mm-hmm.
what are the guys, those little Vulpira rats that jump in
Padfoots.
The pad.
Those mobs are so bad that you just don't pull them if you don't have a disease dispel.
Yeah.
It reduces healing intake by like what 50%.
50%, and it's a terrible dot.
I kind of don't mind that for mobs that are out of the path. Like in Freehold, I don't care about Padfoots because you never have to pull any. But in Siege, you have to pull invaders, so you can't like I would actually be fine with them saying like, hey, okay, some healers can't do these dispels, and like these mobs do it, and you can only choose to pull them if you're confident or if you have those classes. But when it's a mandatory mob for the dungeon, then
same with Temple of Sethralus. Yeah, Temple of Sethralus with all this, like the incubators and the tenders, they just put all those poisons on you. You're like, all right, I get.
The difference in
dispelling on CD.
Damage. Yeah, the difference in party damage for not having a poison dispel and having one is ridiculous. And it's not new. That's the biggest thing. It's like, it's not new to BFA. In Darkheart Thicket, they had a poison debuff that went out. If you didn't dispel it in 3 seconds, it burst. Like, it killed the person who had it. It killed everybody in 5 yards of them.
You see, Jack, this is why you have both a poison and a curse dispel, because you're playing Druid.
Oh my gosh. Not playing Druid. But like these things just like they've already existed. It's already been a problem. But a lot of Mythic Plus is the little things, right? That we really like, or really enjoy, or really hate. And poisons is one of them. It just doesn't really seem to make a lot of sense. Why
aren't they magic? Like, why aren't they magic?
Why aren't they just regular old magic effects? Why is it that Battle Res is only for 3 classes out of 12? And then but Bloodlust is only for 3 classes as well, but then they make an incredibly accessible effect in drums for everybody who wants it. But I have to stand on top of somebody and channel for 5 seconds and stop doing anything in order to battle res them.
And there's a chance you might die.
Have you guys seen that clip?
Chance you die.
Yeah,
that's my favorite thing, man.
There was a backfire though in
I heard
Keystone Masters
JB
time trial.
A backfire.
Time trials. Yeah.
It happens to all of us from time to time. Really hate to see it.
I only had that happen to me once.
That's the kind of thing that just tilts me off the planet, because it's trying to make a class fantasy game into a competitive environment and stuff like that exists, and it's just like
Yeah.
All right. So final thoughts here on our main topic here. Jack, do you have any advice for somebody trying to pick a healer to play? If they're like, hey, I want to roll healer, or maybe I want to make an alt. Any kind of guidance for how to get started on that decision?
I think that you kind of have to look at what you're more interested in doing. Any healer can do their 10, 15s. You can keep on climbing very high keys. It's just a matter of getting past that barrier of entry for high keys. If you're, for example, like a priest or shaman, even to some extent Mistweaver as well, has some barrier of entry. I think Mistweaver's going to fall to the wayside once MDI gets going, but it's always that barrier of entry to show that people want to bring you to a group. And I think a lot of ways you can adjust to that is try to be as perceptive as you can, try to be as critical as you can of your own gameplay, to look at what the tank's doing, to look at what the group's doing, and to honestly, in lower keys, make up for their mistakes. You don't really need to contribute a lot of damage whenever you're doing lower keys. It's more about just keep everybody else alive, and then they'll like you and want to play with you more. And then you use that to clear all the dungeons, raise your Rio, get into higher level groups where you can actually contribute damage.
I do think it's going to be hard to get into groups as as a priest and like a shaman. You're going to be able to find a guild instantly, but you're not going to be able to find a dungeon like instantly. As a Resto Druid, it's going to be very challenging for you to find a guild. But if you want to find a Mythic Plus group, it's going to be super easy. If you're a Paladin, you can find both.
Yeah, just play Paladin. There you go. Best of both.
Paladin is definitely the easiest way to get invited to stuff right now. But the thing about that is that, like, if you're trying to choose a healer to play for more than just one patch cycle, it's who knows what the first patch of Shadowlands is going to be like, right?
Sure.
Like, who knows which specs are going to be getting invited then. So if your goal is to just always be getting invited to stuff, you have to be ready to change specs each patch, right?
Yep. And I think that's the biggest thing is just trying to find a healer that you enjoy and that you're willing to think outside of the box for in order to support them better.
Yeah.
It's true.
It's at the end of the day, you have to figure out what your priorities are and make a decision based off that.
I mean,
All
if you're
right.
motivated to do something, you will be able to push higher. You will be able to be in more competitive environments,
Let's move on then to our question and answer segment here, closing out the show this week. Our first one, not really a question, but is from Twitter, is from Jack here, actually, from 3 hours ago. A tweet here that's cursed images from Group Finder. They're learning not to need us anymore. And then this is a tanks only group in the Group Finder.
Not a question and answer, but a good meme.
This is certainly a good meme, yeah. Tettles, what's your commentary on this screenshot that you wanted here?
Elite Vengeance Demon Hunter.
Yeah. Just all bench Demon Hunters. Very cool. Okay. Next question, that I guess is actually a question, comes from @SleeplessWow, who asks, do you think Awakened mobs are more playable / fun to heal than the emissaries? Removed the warping factor of Druid for this question, because Resto Druid single-handedly solved emissaries, and I don't think a healer does that in the same way for Awakened. So Jack, how is feeling Awakened felt for you on different specs?
It's so much better. Oh my gosh, it's like miles
yeah.
better, man. Like the worst thing about dealing with the beguiling emissaries was like there's just such polarity between like one week and another, right? Like it was kind of a pain as a healer just to like constantly be smiting or just spamming Purge the Wicked on an enchanted emissary to knock it back. Like that was annoying, right? But there's such a high disparity between that and like a Tides emissary that you can't root, right? Or I'm like, oh, let's set up like 6 crowd controls because we don't have a Druid that just spams root. So I'm going to knock it back into a fear, and then I'm going to ask for somebody to use their blind, and then they're going to pistol shot it or something like that, right? I'm just like, why is it so much work?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really feel like there's that much work. I got like a cool little bit of utility with like the Fear Bomb, for example, where like, hey, I can revival the fear, or I can mass dispel, or I can tremor. You have a couple little things here.
Or you can bop off like the tank buster. There's like a bunch of like small things, but none of them are like, oh, solved.
Well,
exactly.
And it's like,
and it's kind of like,
it's these bursts of action, right? Like it's like, okay, there's fears and we're handling those. And then it's, we're fighting the thing for a bit and I can use my buttons. Whereas with Enchanted, it was like, you're just dealing with the Enchanted Emissary 24/7 until it's gone. You're dealing with the fact that there's a Tides Emissary in the pool 24/7 until it's gone. So I think that there's a much better like cadence of action in the Awakened encounters than the emissaries.
Yeah, and it feels kind of like a garnish, I guess, to your runs. It's like, yeah, here's Mythic Plus with a side of Awakened. Not like, here's Mythic Plus with beguiling everywhere, permeating like every bit of the dungeon, you know? Just
Yeah.
like,
That's a really good way to put it.
It's the
Same
difference
thing with
between
Infested as well. It was like every other mob infested. Like, look at what did everybody like? Everybody really liked some Bob Salami. They're like, all right, every once in a while you get some reaping mobs coming in, and you can choose when to play it and choose how it impacts you. You know, every once in a while you do the Awakened and you choose how it impacts you and you choose what you do with it, you know? That's just what people love.
I think there's no surprise that like this, but Reaping and Awaken were both like 4 or 5 times per dungeon you have to deal with this, and then the rest of the dungeon you don't. Whereas Beguiling and Infested, it felt like every single pull was like, all right, how do we deal with this, you know, Beguiling thing? Just for 5 months, you're just doing emissaries every pull, and it was so so exhausting. Yeah,
And they changed it every week too. Yeah,
exactly. It was so difficult to learn. And now it's what, every 2 weeks? So you get like Fortified and Tyrannical. You have the same positioning for the mobs. So like right when they switch, it might be kind of a pain to like learn it again and get used to it. Like, oh, now it's here, right? But
even that, it's only two obelisks flip, and there's only 2 total patterns, and 2 are fully fixed the whole season. Yeah, I think it's fantastic.
I like that a lot.
Fantastic. All right,
really good.
Next question comes from Twitch chat from Fresh Monk, who says, question for Jack. How do you deal with your group constantly complaining about what your healer class lacks?
You find other friends. I mean, at the end of the day, like, you can always pick apart what one member of your team does and doesn't bring, right? And some people are doing it to try to pressure you to re-roll. But I think that they also have to look at, like, how they adjust their priorities. Because if you're in a group that you're doing, like, 15, 17s and stuff like that, yeah, it sucks not having a Soothe. But there's boundless areas where it's like, okay, well, just tank needs to kite now, right? Like, you have to play around this thing as a result, right? And maybe you guys can work together on it, but pressuring people to re-roll in a world where essences exist is honestly just like a really, really frustrating thing. And honestly, I'd say it's kind of like a mean thing too. You're like, we need you to bring more stuff, so go put months of grinding to work so that you can have every little thing that we want. Like, most groups don't need FODM. You don't need Flavor of the Month to do well.
Yeah, I mean, I think every class and every spec can probably do like 1 to 2. Like almost all classes and specs can do 1 key level below the top tier of keys. Everybody can do at least 2. So it's just how much time and like how much you want to try to make it work. I don't think it's always necessarily like. I do think in part too, it's like you're going to have issues with strategies because it's going to be. Like, playing this like off meta stuff, you're going to have to be able to come up with your own strategies and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, like, you can make it work if you really want to try.
The thing is, your group kind of like, if your group has to play, your group has to play as well as a meta comp would have to play at a time of 25 to time of 23 with an off meta comp in a lot of cases, right? Like, you have to play a lot better. And so if you're playing with a bunch of other people who are on these like meta specs and who could be playing that well with a meta spec and doing two key levels higher, like, it's kind of understandable that they want to do that, right? It kind of makes sense that they may want to go and, you know, time the higher keys with the other specs, and there's kind of nobody's really wrong except for class balance. class balance is
wrong with that. If your friends are constantly hounding you about it, maybe your friends just don't have the same priorities and goals. And I mean, you can work through it. Like, maybe your goal in the future is to play the meta spec, but you're just like getting into keys at the moment and you're not there yet. Or on the other hand, you just like only want to play your spec, period, and that's it. You just got to communicate whichever version of that is to your group and be like, look, I know we don't have this, but we got to figure out how to do it without it right now. We can talk about it later, you know?
Yeah, the difference, you just, you know, if your goal is like, hey, you know, I want to do these like, you know, really high level keys, like the highest level keys, that's when you really need to start thinking about, okay, is this going to be like not feasible? Do I need to think about re-rolling? But at this point in the expansion, man, by the time you're done getting your essences, it's going to be Shadowlands, so I wouldn't bother.
Yeah. let's say you want 6 Gushing Wounds traits. I'll see you in a year.
Yeah. You need to go to that corruption vendor right now.
Do all your world quests and try to get your Gushing Wound traits randomly.
Man, Gushing Wound scales with eye level as well, so you can't even get like 420 Gushing Wound and have it be that good.
True.
Ooh. That's true.
Yeah, so like in Legion, I played Brewmaster almost explicitly in Mythic Plus. I wasn't like heavily involved in Mythic Plus yet. I wasn't good at multi-classing, and I got hounded for not having Death Grip like at least 10 times a day. And eventually it went away, but man, that was frustrating.
It's just it's that's gonna happen to you. Like if you're not playing a Resto Druid, you're gonna hear about Ironbark, right? Or,
It depends on your group.
Yeah.
It really just depends on your group and depends on the people you're playing with. Because if like, sure, I get memed about doing fucking tank damage, but I'm still getting invited to keys. like whatever.
True. Yeah, and that's the thing is like there's so many moments of like you just need to find people who are going to survive. Like a lot of times people's damage is good or good enough to get through dungeons. You just need to find people who are able to stay alive and actually work with each other, have a good attitude as well.
All right.
It's like a lot of times whenever you're raiding too, it kind of seems like you're kind of trapped on the boat with each other.
Yep.
So if people start being emo or people start having a bad attitude, it starts like infecting everything else. And you can't leave, you can't stop and just do it later, right? You're there for your 3-4 hours a night or whatever. Overtime police and stuff going, notwithstanding. And then you're just trying to trap there. When you're in Mythic Plus, like you want to be able to run with the same group over and over again, right? But you need to be able to know, like if you're a tilter, maybe you just need to take a break from it,
Mm-hmm. All right, our final question for today comes from VTechXD on Discord. My question is, how accurate do you believe the Sims are when it comes to corruption? Like, is there a standard rule that is used by the Sims when it comes to simming corrupted pieces? So, Tettles, do you have a opinion on simming corruption? Because I know you're kind of our resident simmer here.
Yes, resident simulation craft.
Yeah,
man. Realistically, there's no standard rule. I think whenever I'm like simming for specific events, notably Mythic Plus, because that's like one of the more harder things to sim, I'll end up simming like a bunch of different damage profiles and kind of looking at them at the same time and trying to think about like what they mean. Because if something is 50% better on single target and it's only like 20% worse than the other thing you're comparing it to on AoE, then you're going to play that thing that's just like way better on single target. It really just kind of depends. Trying to cut down as few variables as possible. You're trying to compare like one thing to another. You're not trying to compare like two very, very huge things. And that's like, so with corruption specifically, just trying to cut down like as few amount of variables as possible. I did it with I did a video on Twilight Dev versus Expedient for Moonkin. And like, sure, Twilight Dev sims higher on AoE, but practicality wise, what are the odds of you being in melee? What if the Twilight Dev doesn't hit the targets because you're facing the wrong direction? You have to think about just like a bunch of different stuff. You can't just take sims at face value.
Yeah, sims always have to be a starting point for Mythic Plus. Like it doesn't answer your question, right? It just kind of helps you figure out what the question is.
Yeah, and then for like single target sims, like single target profiles are by far the most reliable for every single spec in every single class, just because they are the most widely maintained. It's just that patchwork single target profile. But you also have to think about stuff like if you add in a secondary target, infinite stars damage gets reduced by 25% just instantly as soon as you add a secondary target. So you just have to think about what you're actually doing and how many variables are changing whenever you're adding new stuff. And you have to think about like the profiles of damage of what you're going to be filling out. There's no good sim profile though, unfortunately.
So you're saying the science is wrong and the earth is flat?
I am absolutely saying that the earth is flat. Bill Clinton was innocent. What other things? Watergate was a hoax.
He's going in.
All right, let's get out of here.
Yeah, get me out of here.
Go.
Jack, is there any shout outs or any place to find people can find you if they are looking for healer content, and what kind of stuff do you do as well?
For me, I've been playing a lot of Mistweaver lately, but also just pounding keys just whenever I can, whether it's on NA servers or EU. So you can find me whether it's on Twitch, YouTube, Twitter at AutomaticJak below. And yeah, thanks so much for having me on again, guys.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on our show. Are you going to be streaming after this? Is that the next order of business for you?
I am probably going to make myself a giant bagel sandwich and then probably do some more keys.
All right, well, we will throw the host on over your way. But that's going to be the end of this week.
Thanks so much, guys.
Bye, everybody. Bye.